a couple. I'm not too heavy on. Yeah, it's a public GitHub. It's on. Our GitHub has all the stuff we built, and then there's no links. I mean, at least like their page to view is on GitHub. At least the idea. Like GitHub, I can actually like that's important. I'm sure if you ask them. Other server is working with others as well. I spoke to like I'm curious about it. People are sleeping on it. There's like a $2.5 billion TVL chain on the Bitcoin L2 Polygon chain that no one has heard about. It's like and it's just like, that's wild. Like, that's going to be a thing. Where do we get? That's where we band together against the Bitcoin.
Right. All of a sudden, we're all like, that's that.
I also say that I truly believe chains of L2s with more leadership, especially technical leadership, is like actually solid leader in the second what is history of the community. As in technology, community was okay, leadership was fine to make it. But in context of community, I like it. And like, so like, then that happened in like Ethereum, it's been steadfast, they kept building through that kind of thing, and then kind of opinionated. So that's why like other L2s that like, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of this. It's CKC as well, but like, I'm talking about something with methodology is not bad. I don't mean it's just, yeah. But either way, but like, I guess it's like y'all, you two chains are the ones that I feel like have the best chance.
You said it perfectly when you said, and I agree with 100%. The hardest thing, we'll build it. That'll people will all build it. That's like CK, whatever. Like, it's all gonna happen. The hardest thing is to organize a community. That's hard. Humans are hard. Tech is easy. Code is one binary. Like humans are so.
Like L2s are inside the ATM. They aren't where people get the cash out. They aren't where they put their card in, right? And by the time we know who wins that level, it's kind of Ethereum. The way Linux is behind things, and we're just a layer, and it's not really matter. So let's just make sure that developers can't get wrong.
I don't think the Bitcoin L2 credit thing. I think it's not cool.
Oh, actually, you gotta go over there?
Yeah, we're gonna start another. It's on Badminton. No, just yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, really?
Never
The
found
picture
out.
that I minted though, when we all the art was from higher than but yeah, I absolutely.
That was so fun. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great meeting you.
I'm honored to get the spiciest takes. The whole time I was really
You
about
did it so, no, that was perfect. Honestly, I'm so glad you did. And I'm glad you did it really.
it was good balance, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I need kind of.
Yeah, no. I also don't have anything bad to say. Like I think I was trying to stick to the script. Yeah.
Alright, well, I'm gonna head to the confession room and I'll head out.
Okay, it was good. Yeah, see you around.
Watch out, watch out.
I will. I'll get the blockhead.
Yeah, get the blockhead on you.
You can confess who you got.
Yeah.
Where do you want me?
Anywhere in this seating area that we're gonna have to squeeze a bit on the couch. I think we're gonna have to put 3 on the couch because this is a bigger table.
We need to have that at some point.
Okay, yes, I know. We're gonna start. I've got for you guys if you like.
I'll take
What's good?
Ray.
Yeah.
You've got blue.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sure, Tina.
Awesome, thank you.
Black or gray?
Like, how did y'all get around?
I didn't get my makeup done. Is that alright?
Ooh, I don't know. Maybe gray.
How many
Great.
votes did you
Okay.
get?
Tyler?
I think the last I saw I was 5th. Thank you so much. And I think I had like 15 votes or something.
That's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
I took a screenshot. We can look.
Oh yeah?
It was like the last minute and a half.
Nice.
How far did you make it?
I think I got to 6th on the voting board.
Oh man.
You were also finalist.
I was like right behind you.
You were sorry, 3rd?
No, I don't think I was. I don't think so.
You were 4th when I took it.
4th.
Yeah.
Nice.
So who was in 3rd?
Look,
AJ.
Yeah, he had the whole like DAO thing. Yeah, the token thing.
He did the DAO.
The token. It was like a
Token.
token.
He did a token.
It was a mid curve. Yeah, that's funny.
I love the strategies. Like,
I know.
have no idea what to expect.
The thing was, is like,
You couldn't really
Logos
have a strategy.
Logos and I had the exact same strategy.
All right, everyone,
So I was
we're
like,
gonna get
I can't really
started.
differentiate myself from him.
Yeah.
If everyone
And
can
he's 10
take a
years
seat,
younger than me,
please.
so who's
You
gonna?
have the same what?
We did the whole game in the same tribes.
Thank you, thank you. There are
So
also
we
more
were like,
chairs
we had the same
here. If
exact
there's not
like-
enough chairs
I
back
also
there,
had a
feel free
split
to grab
vote because it was me and AJ were both from
But we are gonna go ahead and
there
get
you go.
started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
could take a seat. Thank you guys. Okay. Eric, are we good?
Yeah, 1 second.
How should we? What's the recommended mic?
Yeah, mic
Situation.
distance. Actually, it's a good question since you guys have 3 on there. He said recommended distance is like a fist away from your mouth.
So is there
So-
a? Do you have a handheld?
For you two, it would be easier if you want to just handle it. I can take that mic stand out.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, that might be easier.
Sure. You want to do it with that one? Okay. Up to you.
I thought you'd get all the test flight club votes.
Sorry.
I thought you'd get all the test flight club votes.
No, they love the MFL thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a very.
What?
That's a very like.
Can he eat some? Maybe like a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought so too, but then like, as I saw that meme coming together, I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Eric, let me know when we're good. Cool.
I won't touch it.
How's this? Great. Good.
Remember if you.
Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to our second podcast of the day. We are live from Denver. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm super excited for this panel. We have the creators of Crypto the Game, Dylan and Tyler, as well as 2 of our finalists with us today. I'm super excited to talk to them about get some behind the scenes info on how they thought about creating the game and then how the players played the game. I also played the game, but I didn't last very long. I only lasted until night 4. So really excited to talk to them and get some behind the scenes. Yeah, I know. I'm going to do better next season. But before we get into it, thank you to LayerZero and Clusters for sponsoring this event. LayerZero is an immutable, permissionless, and censorship-resistant protocol that connects blockchains. You can check them out at layerzero.network. And Clusters is one name for all of your wallets and all of your chains. You can check them out and get your name at clusters.xyz. We also have drinks provided to us by Long Drink, which you can find in the coolers behind you over there. Feel free to grab those at any time, as well as the food on the table. So let's go ahead and get into it. So thank you to our wonderful guests for being here. Dylan Abruscato, creator of Crypto the Game, co-founder, as well as Tyler, another co-founder and a legendary dev, is what I hear through the grapevine. And then we have 2 of our finalists, Richie Bonilla, who you've actually heard on Rehash in the past before. Twice, I think, right? Twice. And Tina Dye, who is also a finalist of Crypto the Game, Season 1. Welcome, everyone. So Dylan actually has to go speak at ETH Denver in a little bit, so we're going to start with him and make sure we get his side of the story and get everything that he wants to say out before he has to leave. But I want to start with, first of all, Crypto the Game. I mean, if you haven't heard of it, it's Crypto Survivor in a sentence.
Yeah, I'd say it's
right?
kind of a combination of Crypto Survivor, Hunger Games, Squid Game, but definitely heavily influenced by the show Survivor, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Was crypto a necessary element for Crypto the Game, do you think? Because I know you've been playing with us. I mean, from what I know of you, you've been a big Survivor fan since the very beginning, your whole life. I've heard that you've applied to every season,
Yes.
which I really hope you get on one of these seasons.
Yeah,
I'm a
same.
I'm a big fan of the
I've
Amazing
never even gotten the
Race.
callback, so
Maybe now you will.
yeah, I know,
Maybe now you
I
will. Exactly. I'm a big fan of Amazing
Along with the
Race,
cease
and
and
I've
desist.
applied to Amazing Race, so I totally understand like the obsession with
Yeah, yeah.
one of those
Nice.
like reality race shows.
Yeah.
But I know you've been toying with this idea for like a number of years, maybe like since back in your HQ trivia days even.
Yeah, I can kind of tell you the whole backstory.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
So I grew up watching Survivor, obsessed with Survivor. I had this CD-ROM game called like Survivor Ultimate in like 2002, and I played it every single day. And you picked like one of 3 cast members from season 2, and you played like tic-tac-toe on your computer, and it was like the most rudimentary form of the game that you saw on CTG. So I've kind of always wanted to play a fun internet survivor game. I started my career in TV and kind of stumbled upon tech by way of HQ Trivia. And if you don't remember HQ, it was a live mobile game show. And I joined that for the kind of grand vision of the future of TV and a live interactive TV network. So in the same way that HQ took a traditional game show and made it internet native and mobile and interactive, the same could have and should have been said for a Shark Tank format or a talent competition or, in my opinion, Survivor. So I pitched this idea internally at HQ for this massive internet survivor game. They're always like, yeah, maybe one day. But yeah, it's just been in the back of my mind. So the initial idea definitely had nothing to do with crypto. I think the reason why we chose to build it with and for crypto is for a number of reasons. One is I think the kind of like crypto Twitter audience that played season 1 was like the most ripe to spend the equivalent of like a couple $100s on a fun, novel internet game. I think it would have been a grind to convince 400 Web2 folks to buy into something like this. And then the other thing is just like I personally think crypto makes everything more fun. So we saw like the kind of like bare minimum of kind of like on-chain elements for season 1, but the goal has always been to get more on-chain each season, and it will unlock like infinitely more fun elements. So you can imagine having the immunity idols actually be NFTs. You can imagine your slot in the game being an NFT that burns or switches to a jury NFT when you get voted out. So these are all things we're currently toying with and building, and it's just going to only get more fun.
Amazing. Would I also be able to like rent out my NFT? Like say like I whenever season 2 comes out,
Yeah.
I know I have like a busy week or something and can't play.
Yeah.
Can I just rent it out for the season? Or could I even rent it out for one challenge? Like the night that I lost was a Saturday, and I am not the most online person, and especially not on weekends. And I felt especially rugged when after I got eliminated on Saturday night, it said Sunday is for touching grass.
Yes.
Almost made it.
Richie and I were in like a separate group chat. I know, and he was just like, "Damn, you're so close. You just touched grass a day early."
Yeah, the touch grass Sunday was partially for players, but mostly for us.
You deserved it. But I mean, could I, for instance, rent out my NFT for the weekends when I know I'm not going to be online?
So we're still finalizing the details of season 2, but in the current thinking, you mint an NFT, which is your slot in the game, and then similar to like hedging a parlay, you could hypothetically sell it at any point throughout the game for arguably more than you bought in for as you get closer to the pot. Technically, you could transfer it to someone else. They could log in as you, complete the challenge, as long as you, I guess, trust them to transfer it back.
Yeah.
But the thinking is the owner of the NFT for season 2 and beyond will kind of like, that will be your entry into the game.
Yeah, I think timing wise too, it makes a lot of sense because the market is a little bit back, and so people are less reluctant to ape in 0.1 ETH into playing a game that they knew nothing about before season 1 started.
Yeah.
And I think also, I mean, I wonder if you agree with this. Do you feel like crypto has reached some sort of escape velocity where you feel comfortable launching a game that's built on crypto rails and having enough traction and enough of an audience playing the game?
Yeah, for sure. I think this format kind of was unique in the sense that it almost like went viral after entries locked.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see. Who knows what's going to happen in season 2? But there was kind of so much FOMO around season 1 that I think season 2 is going to do inherently better. But yeah, it's an interesting format, and the reason why we basically had everyone refer folks to earn immunity before entries locked, because unlike something like HQ where you can just have someone play tomorrow that you refer, the entries had a lock and the tribes had to be assigned at like a certain time. But I definitely wasn't expecting 400 plus people to play season 1. So thank you all, and I'm glad you did. But yeah, I think it's only going to make for a more fun season 2.
I'm wondering too, what were your expectations coming into season 1?
I mean, I knew it was the most fun game I could imagine. I think like we both, Ty and I, love Survivor and like kind of like built it for us. And just personally speaking, I've never acted with so much conviction with something in my entire life, because I knew as a Survivor fan and as someone that would want to play this thing, like what I would want to see in it. So I guess like I thought maybe like 80 people would play and like friends and friends of friends and things like that. But I think I probably just like I mean, I don't want to sound too like cocky, but in the back of my mind, I knew this thing would do really well if people played. So I kind of always thought, and we always spoke about like season 1 would be for people like in our immediate circle, and then they would talk about how much fun it was, and season 2 would be like the season. So
I feel like season 2 is absolutely going to blow up now that people know what it is, because I think a lot of people were probably hesitant to ape into season 1, not knowing what it is at all.
Yeah.
But now that people have seen just how addicting the game is and how many people got involved, like season 2, I think is just going to blow up entirely.
Sure. Yeah.
That's my expectation. What about in terms of like your expectations with how people would play the game versus how they actually played it in terms of strategy or working together? Or I know like one surprising thing was when everybody decided to band together and not vote anybody out.
Yes.
Right? That was kind of a big one that happened early on.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't think you were expecting that, were you?
No, I mean, I definitely thought that a game that is inherently built to eliminate each other and one person wins would be a lot more ruthless than it was. So I know, like, I love WAGME, and like I know it's a big part of crypto culture, but I wasn't expecting a game with this format to be so WAGME, if that makes sense. But so I'd say I definitely wasn't expecting the like voting, like abstaining from voting, but I also wasn't expecting how 24/7 the game would be. I kind of thought people would come in around noon, play a round of Pac-Man. Maybe they had an alliance with someone they knew from Twitter. Then they'd come back on at 8 to cast their vote. And yeah, it just kind of like ballooned into this like 24/7, 10-day reality show that like if you weren't like, I spoke to one player who told me one time he went on a run. He came back to over 3,000 unread messages in his tribe Telegram chat, and they were all like, "Oh, he's not serious. Like, he's out tonight."
I believe it. That is literally how I got voted out. Is I just wanted to like go out to dinner with my husband, and apparently that was not allowed at all.
No,
not allowed.
No.
And I have to say, I played more Pac-Man that day than I have in probably my whole life.
I think we saw, I don't know if it was Pac-Man or Flappy Bird. There were like 30 million clicks on our site or something insane.
It was insane how much you guys were playing that. We had no idea. We had to boost all of our servers and everything to handle it. It was a stressful couple days.
Yeah.
It was stressful, I think, for everyone, for you guys, for us. I mean, I was stressed out because I'm so bad at games, but I was like, I have to at least be average in my tribe or else they're going to see me as a weak link and vote me out because they're like, she's useless. She's not helping boost our average. So I kept playing. I literally played for hours trying to get my score to like average.
Well, I didn't know like who would get voted out. And it's like, are you if you're really good at the challenges, are you considered a threat and you should be eliminated? Or if you're not good at challenges, you should be kept around? Because I think most Survivor fans had a feeling that the tribes would eventually merge and it would turn to an individual game. So like those that aren't as good at the challenges might be worth keeping around. So
I always thought you kind of wanted to coast in the middle for as long as you can.
Yeah.
Because you don't want a target on your back, but you also don't want to be seen as a weak link. Like if you are like MIA, you're not active in the chats, you go for a run, God forbid,
I know,
and come back to 3,000 DMs.
I mean, we can ask the finalists how the strategies they took, but it definitely seemed like the loudest voices externally were targets pretty early on.
Yes.
And the guy that won, I think he kind of like didn't make any enemies and played like a very wholesome game.
Yeah, for sure. One other thing I wanted to ask you about is how did you come up with the different challenges and the different like puzzles and stuff? Was that mostly you, or was it you and Tyler together, or?
I was going to say
Okay.
team effort, but thank you,
Mostly
Ty.
Dylan.
I would say, so my favorite part about Survivor is the diversity of the challenges. Some of them are mental challenges, some are physical challenges, some are social challenges. So like you could be the most physically fit player in the world, but like struggle with a puzzle in Survivor. So I wanted to make sure that there was just like a good combination of like on-chain crypto puzzles, digital and IRL scavenger hunts, and classic arcade games. So I wanted to make sure we just had like a bunch of different challenges. And then I don't know if I've told you this or spoken too much about it, but we were supposed to launch with Pac-Man. And Ty and Brian were like, and Brian, who's not here, but the other member of the team, are basically like needed some more time. And we were just like, what is like the least effort on product and engineering to like ship something the night before? And I was like, what if we just like put a clue in a text box and just like hide something IRL? So Ty lives in
Literally
Brooklyn,
saved us.
and just
We
like
were dying.
hid the clue. So we built the IRL scavenger hunt the night before it launched, and that was just like on a whim in a couple hours.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought that one was kind of bullshit because I just felt like people living in Brooklyn had an unfair advantage.
Yeah. So
in
I
that
will
one.
say the bookstore was like in on it, and if someone called and asked, they
That's
were
fair.
prepared to give the
Yeah.
answer over
I
the
think
phone.
I did see
so
you tweet that.
we
That's
were
fair.
expecting a bit of pushback there, but at the same time, like we just had to make something that was kind of light on the product.
Yeah. As you guys were watching people play the game, did you have any predictions about who was going to win? Like, did you see people on Twitter? Did you get intel from players of the game and you were like, I think this person has a good shot?
So there's a guy named Christian who, I don't know if he was on either of your tribes, but he solved the first challenge. He like discovered the clue. We saw just like on the back end that he was the only player that had immunity, either himself or through the tribe or through referrals, for the first 8 nights of the game. So he was like, he was playing a near perfect game from like a challenge, referral, and immunity standpoint. So like by Survivor standards, he was probably like the favorite. And then he became very vocal about not wanting someone who was going to split the pot to win. And I think in doing so, put a target on his back. So I, with his permission, ended up writing a Twitter thread on like why I thought he was playing a great game. And just because like on Survivor, someone like Jeff Probst would never let a run like that go unnoticed. But I also didn't want to put a target on his back if he was trying to stay under the radar. Yeah, he was like, I'm going home tonight anyway because of I've been so
himself.
vocal. So rip it. But I thought he played like technically the best game, just from like an immunity standpoint.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was each referral you made gets you 1 night of immunity. I thought that only applied to the first night.
No, so if you tweeted you were playing, you got immunity on night 1. If you referred 1 person, you got immunity on night 2. If you referred 5 people, you got immunity on night 3.
Oh.
And then the top 5 or the top 3 on the immunity leaderboard got immunity on night 5. And we also did a Twitter giveaway. So like he somehow did all of those things plus won multiple tribal immunity challenges.
Gotcha.
So yeah, he was very locked in.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bold move on his part at the end to be so vocal about not wanting to split the pot.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I mean, in Survivor, you can't bribe other contestants. You can't split the pot. I like this idea, I think, did so well before people played it because of the tagline of like one person will win, basically. And the idea that one person won, the equivalent of $100,000 plus, is so enticing. And like, if it was like play a game and like maybe double your money, I feel like that's just like such a boring game. So
Yeah.
So if I were playing and I were trying to win, I would not split the pot personally.
Interesting. What about you,
Yeah.
Tyler? Would you have split it?
No chance.
No chance. Okay.
Going broke.
Okay. Looking back on season 1, what would you say were some of like the most successful elements of it, other than just a lot more people than you expected playing? And then what were some
Yeah.
of like the least successful that you might change about the game?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I think The engagement was, I think I mentioned this, but the engagement like blew me away. Not just the number of people that played, but like the fact that they were fully engaged 24/7 nonstop. I'd say one thing we were expecting, but was kind of a bump in the road, was right before entries locked, one particular player signed up with like 170 plus bots, and it was very easy to spot because they all had 0 Twitter followers and were referring each other. But we made the very quick decision to disqualify those players just for season 1 because it was designed very specifically for human players. It just took a few days to like verify that, decide whether or not to refund the person. We ultimately did. But that was probably the one thing that like kept me up at night.
That's what all those Etherscan transactions were, right? That people were digging into as one of the clues.
I think so. I mean, there were also a couple people that accidentally signed up twice or like sent 0.1 ETH without going through the onboarding flow after entries locked. So like we just like initiated a lot of refunds, and then there were hidden immunity idols on the site, which was a very fun thing that Ty shipped the night before. But I felt bad for people that were like digging into refund transactions on Etherscan to like try to find clues, and I'm like, I can't say it's hard because you want to like guide people on these puzzles, but you obviously can't. But it was very funny to watch people like.
They dug into
literally
everything.
Just a refund.
Yeah,
literally everything. Diving into the code and stuff. We were
I
blown
know.
away.
Yeah,
Wish we hid more, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, well, now you know for next season.
Now we know.
What about on the dev side? I know you were probably shipping day and night because it was always like constantly moving and shifting.
Yeah.
What do you think? Was there anything that you would change about season 2 with regards to that stuff, or what do you think was like?
I think for season 1, we were really just getting the rails in place to run all of these. And one of the hardest things was just shipping, like you said, like day and night, minutes before challenges, like
every time the
before
countdown
voting.
was going down for a challenge to start, literally Ty and Brian were like pushing
changes.
Like, almost every challenge was pushed right as the countdown.
It was a full
0,
sprint the entire time. It was unbelievable. So excited not to do that for season 2, hopefully. But no promises. So at least having the architecture in place, being able to really just kind of expand upon what we've already built, and we've already collected so much good feedback from all the participants, which we're so grateful for. And so applying a lot of that, seeing what we can improve, and just, spending all of our time doing that before season 2 starts.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I want to get some of the finalist perspective too. So the two of you made it until the end of the game. Tina, you were actually in my tribe from the very beginning. And after I got voted off in night 4, which again, like not mad about, but this was an interesting thing I found too, is like, at least in the silver tribe, which is what we were in, whenever somebody got voted out, they were super gracious about it in the chat. Like no one was like F you in the chat, at least to everybody else. But I think definitely like people were upset about it too. And a lot of people were like, are you going to reveal who voted for who, like who voted out who? So, they can come after
that would have been super spicy if we knew.
Well, now that you have the anonymous confessional, everyone can go in and say who they voted.
Oh, yeah,
that
exactly.
was Richie's idea, but
yeah, you guys should go and do that.
I don't even remember who I voted for.
As long as you didn't vote for me.
I did not.
I did not even think I was on the chopping block that night at all. And then all of a sudden, it was like last 5 minutes or not, or like less than that. I got 4 votes all of a sudden. And then afterwards, someone from our tribe DM'd me and was like, hey. And I like replied and I was like, hey, thanks for your support, whatever. And then they were like, oh no, I voted for you. I'm so sorry. I was like, why even bother DMing me that? And then they said like they had a separate side chat going that was like part of the silver tribe. Were you in that?
I don't think I was in that chat.
Okay, I definitely wasn't.
I definitely wasn't in that chat, but I think
so. There was a separate side chat for just Silver Tribe, and they were colluding on who to vote out, and like a whole separate thing was happening. So
I think if you got put on the board in the first part of the vote, you're most likely going to get voted out because people just want to like consolidate their votes.
That's what I thought, and I wasn't on the board at all until like the last 5 minutes.
End?
Yeah. So I was super confused about that, but. For you guys, like, what was your strategy going into the game?
You want to go first?
Strategy is a big word for how I.
Did anyone have a strategy? I mean, I think we were all just as shocked as Dylan was about like how engaged people were, or at least I was. Like I did not know that's what I was signing up for when I signed up.
Yeah, I think it's because there's so many people who tried so much harder than I thought they would that it made me try really hard.
Yeah.
I did the same thing you did, which is like for something like Pac-Man, I was like, I need to be at least above average, so I'm not gonna get voted out.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's truly like a function of luck.
Yeah. Did you contribute to solving any of the clues?
I tried.
Yeah. I didn't have much help on the first one, but then like in later puzzles, I was definitely much more involved.
Yeah. Well, the final one was like an individual challenge, right?
Yeah.
I really tried hard to like collaborate with people on that one, but it was like some of this was also like way too technical for me. Like I felt really disadvantaged as a non-developer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the least technical founder of all time, and I'm so bad at Flappy Bird. So like personally, I would have been terrible at the challenges. But I mean, you made it to the finale, so I don't necessarily think being bad at challenges was like. In fact, all of the folks that won individual immunity challenges were eliminated, other than the last one, which guaranteed the spot in the finale. So. It could be a strategy for season 2 is to not win.
That last puzzle was incredibly fun. I got into like crypto through crypto puzzles.
Oh, amazing.
And so, but I never could solve any of them. Like I was in a community of people who were really good at solving them.
Yeah.
So this was the first one that I'd actually solved myself versus just spectating other people solve. And it was like, really basically the experience was like banging my head against the wall for the first like 2 hours, giving up for like 2 hours, and then coming back and solving it in the last 2 hours.
Did any of the clues help? I mean, I'm curious how
the Twitter stuff. Yeah. So like we were like your likes were funny because like it was like liking tweets from like years ago that were like random people on Twitter with the same words in them. And there was those were definitely helpful. And I think that's why it accelerated in like the last 2 hours. It was like I had like a breakthrough, and then there was like some talk in a chat about something, and then on Twitter, and it was just like putting all the pieces together.
Yeah, it's hard to know. So we kind of like built these puzzles hoping they were solvable, but it's like what if someone solved it in 20 minutes, or what if someone never solved it and like we just kind of like shipped it and hoped. And then once we saw that like, a few hours in, folks were like getting really stuck, I was like, all right, I need to like start dropping hints and liking tweets and like guiding them. But
what I thought was like so funny, but also a little bit cruel, was the answer was literally in your Christian thread from the night before. And I even like Googled this lady's name. Yeah. And you're like, you needed her maiden name, and who would have known? But I was like, wow, that was the answer.
Yeah, there were some Easter eggs for sure. Just like the first challenge, if everyone didn't know where to go, and I made a LinkedIn profile for Crypto the Game, which is so boomer in Web 2, and I kind of did it for to be funny, but like I just reposted this like McNally Jackson Chris Dixon post, and if you played the game and solved the puzzle, we hid an answer in one of Chris Dixon's books in McNally Jackson. Everyone was going on this crazy goose hunt, and all you had to do was check our LinkedIn for the answer like right away. So
I thought the funny thing was somebody in our Telegram chat mentioned that, like, could it be like an IRL clue? Like, is it that obvious? And just like everyone ignored him completely. Like it was just like nobody was like, oh yeah, that could be it.
Yeah.
And then hours later, when it was found, he like went back and like replied to that. I was like, this like,
told you.
Yeah.
Like what I suggested hours ago.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the most underappreciated things about the game was like the hosting and the way that you did these like soft little hints and things throughout. And if the players are paying attention, you're like hanging on your every word and digging through the code and like all this stuff, like we were looking at the subdomains that were registered like in the Chrome network tag. We found Flappy Bird, and we were like playing it, and every time we refreshed, the game would get better. And like we had, it was like little like things you guys had written, like, okay, make this pretty, like stuff like that. And we were like playing it because it was like on flp.cryptothegame.com. We're like, oh, it's Flappy Bird, holy shit.
Another thing I thought was interesting was like people that try to cheat in Pac-Man in those games. you called them out and they got disqualified? Or
no,
what
what happened was for the tribal arcade game challenges like Pac-Man, we took the average tribal score.
Right.
So if you cheated, we just zeroed you out, and we marked that you were one of the players that had a 0 score. So that brought down your tribe's average, and with 10 tribes, if you have a 0 and that brings down your average, you're screwed.
Yeah.
I don't know if they all got voted out or not, but I would imagine that they did.
Is that something you guys were expecting to happen, and you had already planned this, or was
Definitely
it like
expecting, but didn't really plan for it as much as it ended up happening. So it was kind of like an on-the-fly switch up and like push out some code to try to fix it and mitigate it. And that was a lot of Brian, our other co-founder, as well.
Okay.
Doing that.
Gotcha. I was gonna say you're trying to like mitigate this stuff and then push out new stuff at the same time.
Yeah,
it
but
just
I will
seems
say
like
I did learn a lot about like what is kind of like native to crypto. Like I was very anti-bots before season 1, and I got a lot of constructive feedback that like maybe a bots versus human season would be very So so I think there were definitely people that were excited about the bots in season 1 and like wanted to try to beat them. So I'm so much more open to something like that. Obviously, I don't want them to cheat in challenges, but like I'm much more open to the idea of like humans versus bots.
Who would you expect to win, a human or a bot?
A human for sure.
For sure.
Yeah,
I think so.
You too.
Yeah.
Even as a dev?
Gang up against the bots.
Yeah.
We were blown away that people were like reacting so positively when we had a ton of bots in our system, and it ended up working out.
I think to a certain extent too, like it is almost more of a social game. Like you were saying, maybe the trick is to not win the challenges, or like you don't really have to be good at stuff. But I mean, I do think it's almost more of a social game than a like solving puzzles and stuff.
Yeah,
game. If you can play a good social game.
Yeah, I think it really depends on how the voting works.
Yeah.
And so in this game, because the voting was visible and other things like that, you could fly under the radar, and that was like good, because you sort of like one vote would mean you're out, right? And so if the voting is structured differently, or it's not visible while it's happening, like that would definitely change how you're going to play it. Also, the thing about like being inactive was like a really great way to like draw a circle around people who were eligible to get kicked out in a given thing. And I felt like people wanted a concrete story for what they should vote for. So like what I would try and do is like create a story like, oh, those people are all from the same previous tribe. So like, and then these people are all stragglers. And so like you guys are like pitted against each other, and I can create an alliance between you guys, and we could vote out those other people, you know, like, and so like those are like concrete stories that could be done. And then there was other narrative wars that were happening, which is different from Survivor, because when you're kicked off the island, you're kicked off the island.
Yeah.
But in this game, like Shlome's was out and Christian were out, and then they were still spinning up Telegram chats and like doing stuff. So they were still playing the game. And they were wrangling large groups of people and like sabotaging group chats, and it was like insane. And they weren't even in anymore. They were just playing it for the love of the game at that point. Yeah. And that's totally something I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, same. I think the fact that players stayed engaged after they got voted out was very like I was expecting to have to like really remind people to cast their jury vote on the final day, but people like were very engaged the entire time, even if they got out. So
that's awesome. Did you worry at any point that it was encouraging people to be almost too online?
No, I mean, I'm like,
I'm speaking to the wrong audience here.
That's another reason why we wanted to build it for like our corner of the internet, because it's like I don't know, I'm so online. I feel like I'm assuming you all are too if you played and love this game. So it's not for everyone, but it's for us for sure.
Totally. Yeah. I know you have to run soon, Dylan, but can you plug anything about season 2? I think it's going to be called Anon Island.
Yeah, Anon Island. It is going to be dropping at some point in the next month or so. It's tough because I feel like at HQ Trivia, something that ultimately led to a lot of churn and our downfall was the fact that it was kind of the same thing every night. And we're trying to make this a lot like a TV show, and like seasonality works so well with TV. So I think if we had dropped season 2 right after season 1, you probably all would like not necessarily play and need a breather. But I'm also a realist, and I know that the consumer crypto attention span is very short, so we don't want to wait too long. So we're trying to like find that perfect balance. But yeah, it's going to be called Anon Island. We're definitely going to be leaning into this, into the NFT-based entry mechanic I spoke about. We're definitely embracing this humans versus bots narrative. So it's going to be similar to Survivor. The high-level idea will always be the same, but each season will be a new twist. So I'll leave it at that.
Is the humans versus bots thing going to be for Anon Island, or is that a future season?
You'll see.
Okay. Tyler, are you ready for another season as the dev that pushes everything?
I'm pumped.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Nice.
Cool.
Well,
thank you so much.
Dylan. I know you have to run. Good luck with your talk.
Yeah, of course.
I do want to pivot back over to you guys a little bit and just. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep, you're all good.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. That was a blast.
See you later.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks for hopping in. For you guys, I wanted to get a little bit more insight into. I know you said there wasn't much of a strategy. I certainly wasn't expecting what the game ended up being, which was such high engagement, nonstop. Like I know, people struggled to work for a couple of weeks.
How many hours
while
did
it
you
was
play?
happening.
I
How many hours did y'all play?
Yeah, I told my team
For
that I was-
Pac-Man?
No, all of them every day.
Oh, I might be like one of the least online people in crypto, which is still like pretty online, but like that was ultimately my downfall. My biggest worst day, whatever, was like Pac-Man day, just because I'm so bad at it and I like felt so much pressure to at least get an average score, so people didn't feel like I was dragging our team score down, that like I probably had to play for 3 hours just to get our team average. But I think we won that one. Like our team won that one. Our team average was super high and it kept going up, so then I kept like hitting above average and I was like, okay, phew, finally I'm done. And I see that like I was below average again, it kept going up, so I had to keep playing. So that was the most time-consuming day.
Yeah, I had a similar experience that day. Like they released the data afterwards about how many times people tried.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize, but I tried like 400 times. I was like, I'm never gonna play Pac-Man like ever again.
I'm never playing ever again. Like I'm retired officially. Were you playing Pac-Man a lot, or are you super good and you just crushed it?
The games I didn't play as much because you could like figure out the way it was, like what were the tricks, and some people were working together to figure that out. I like remapped the click on my mouse to like a keyboard key, so it made it much easier to do because your mouse won't move around.
Yeah.
And so that helped a lot. So I got like a score where I figured that was going to be like in the top 5 of my team, and then I spent the rest of the time building alliances. So like that was really where I spent most of my time, was like figuring out what narrative I could tell about the people in the tribe based on their outside of game relationships or like previous tribe relationships, and then trying to sort of pitch different people within like different group chats within the tribe on like what story to buy for why to vote tonight.
From the beginning, did you guys think like, I'm going to play a social game, I need to form alliances, this is how I'm going to survive? Or did you think, I'm really good at puzzles? I mean, Richie, I know you really like puzzles. Like, I'm really good at puzzles. I can just crush every challenge and make sure nobody votes me off because they need me as an asset. Like, what was your thought process? And then how did that change as you started playing?
I feel like there was always like this diminishing returns on the puzzles or on the the video games, because it was, hey, are we actually going to win tonight? Because if I'm looking around and I'm getting a sense for like where are we on this? Are we going to solve this first? Are we making progress? If not, then we should actually be building alliances and like doing that part. And so with a video game, I'll try and get high scores as soon as possible. With the puzzles, some of them were solved really quickly. And so it was like, okay, well, like we're not gonna, we have to switch to that. So I felt like it depended on the night. But I definitely was like, I can solve puzzles and like play games. So let me try and get immunity that way first.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Tina?
I think there was just so little information going into the game that I had no idea what to expect, right? And so I was sort of like, okay, let me just within my tribe try not to be the worst, last 10 people that are likely to be targeted. And then let me just like contribute to my like 20,000 telegrams. I've never had so many telegram groups in my life. It was like, we would have a silver one, then we have like a white one, then it's like a white silver tribe, and then like the female tribe. There's so many different tribes that like ultimately you just had to like sort of navigate around these like social dynamics and like hopefully pick the one that's going to end up having the most like dominant number of people and dominant number of votes.
I was going to say, how did you decide kind of who to actually form alliances with? And did you ever have to burn anyone or lie to anyone at any point?
I leaned heavily on in real life things. So it wasn't necessarily my friends, but like people who I knew each other. So I'd say like, well, you guys know each other, and we know each other. So if we can all trust each other, then then we have like social accountability outside the game to not screw each other over. And so I feel like if I could lean on that, that was like the thing. And like at one point, I'm in a group chat with like partner of my lead investor, like another, like it's like and people that I know from like consumer crypto stuff, then some seed club people, and I'm like, okay, like you all know me. But you don't know each other, but like that's enough of a proxy because we don't know anybody else within the tribe. And so that was like big thing was leaning on in real life stuff because that's the only actual social accountability you could have.
Yeah.
And then there was a question marks like if we all make it to the end, what are you gonna have to do? Are we gonna have to backstab each other?
Right.
I tried to play an honest game. There were definitely like some hostage situations that we had to create where we're like, you have to vote first, and you need to vote for this person, or else this whole plan doesn't work. And if you two people don't vote first, we're all just going to vote you out. And like so we had a couple of those things where we like wanted to orchestrate to all vote for one person. And there was like definitely some like weird, like tense, like hostage-y kind of negotiation things that came up.
I think I played definitely like a more simple game than you played. I knew one person who joined like very well, but other than that had some loose connections with people who play the game. I think the alliance that ultimately I really trusted for whatever reason was our Silver Tribe chat. I felt like actually the Silver Tribe that got reorganized with me into the White Tribe, like that particular set of people I felt really comfortable creating alliances with going forward. But it's hard to say because there's definitely like we had this random female alliance that also sprung up, and you could just tell there was a lot of information leaking, and so you can like tell based on what you said and what's like shared after that, which tribes to like trust and like try to invite to things. But yeah, I think like my like trusted community was really just from whoever I was like talking with in these tribes, and then the people that I would like talk with the most in side chats.
Did you think the women's tribe was gonna work? Because when I heard about that, it reminded. Did you guys watch Squid Games, like the reality show, not the original one?
I did. Yeah.
So it reminded me of like when they try to form the women's tribe,
and it worked for them.
Squid Game. It worked until someone didn't pick a female. So the idea was it was like during a thing where each person like that gets to save one more person until whoever is left at the end gets killed. And so the women all banded together and they were like, if we get picked, like we'll pick another female and let's just get all the women into the next round. And then at one point, like someone was like, yeah, but my best friend is a male. Yeah. And so do I go with the female tribe, just like women power, whatever, or do I go with actually like my best friends who I really trust, who just happen to not be female? Yeah. Like, did it remind you of the Squid Game thing?
It reminded me so much of the Squid Game thing. So I think I'm pretty sure I was the only female left in the last 20 people.
No way.
I'm pretty sure like in the beginning there was like a much like higher percentage of women, right? And so I think there was like a couple things that went wrong. Like first, the creation of the female tribe was like literally via Twitter, and then like Dylan responded and like tagged all the females. Like I think there was this like mass exodus of women that night. There was this one night where like basically like I don't know, over half of the women were wiped out, I think, because they were like, oh, there's this female tribe happening.
Yeah.
And then I did think we ran into that particular dynamic where because everyone was like in different tribes, they just got closer to like they had like besties of their own tribe, and so it wasn't like you could necessarily count on like the female alliance being like the first and foremost alliance people were in, and so that dynamic definitely played out. And
yeah, for sure. I also was shocked to get invited to like certain alliances. Like Nick invited us, or I don't know actually who started that alliance, but somebody invited us to that group chat in the beginning before the tribes like combined. It was in the beginning. Somebody was like, I imagine we're gonna need alliances between tribes to get intel in between tribes, and I was kind of surprised. That was maybe day 2 of the game, wasn't it? Yeah. Or something. And I was not expecting that.
There was so much like psyops happening, like we didn't even talk about like these random people who are like Wilberts. There was like 2 Wilberts, and they're like, DM me if you want to live tonight. Like,
wow.
And there was
Yeah, it was
another one that
incredible.
was like King Wilbert.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you have to bribe anybody or?
So one of the untold stories I think that I haven't heard really go anywhere else is that there was this big sort of public feud between the like splitters and then the anti-splitters, and they
What are the splitters?
like the
versus
people who would
The
split
pot
the pot.
splitters.
So someone
Oh,
circulated
yeah,
a Google
yeah,
Doc
yeah.
on like
Yep.
the game theoretical
That was-
perfect way.
Yeah, I was
Right.
gonna ask what you
And-
guys' opinion on that was.
Oh, no, you can't split it. Like you,
What did you
I
think,
thought
Tina?
about
Tina, I
splitting
feel like
it,
you're
but-
more of a team
but
player.
no, the thing is like I thought about, oh yeah, splitting it, but it's like actually a mid curve because it doesn't actually, you can't actually orchestrate an alliance at towards the end that's going to split it up and make it worth it and still give you a tangible advantage in the end. So like you need a certain number of people. And so like that was definitely in my like back pocket, and like Spencer and I talked about how that would work, and it just never actually works out to like something that you could execute and get a tangible advantage. It would mostly be like splitting it, like agreeing to split, and then still basically having like no advantage. And then if you win, now you split, but the split didn't actually help you win. So
Right.
that's how I felt like that whole conversation was just like a mid curve on the whole game. And it was like, this is the game theoretical best way to play, but it's not the funniest outcome. And that's the funniest outcome. The most interesting outcome is going to be the outcome. And like, that's kind of what happened, right? It was like the most unassuming player won. And I thought that was
Exactly.
awesome, but it's also kind of like the most unexpected thing.
Yeah.
I was definitely not like anti-split. I was like, if I were to have won, I literally was like, I will commit half of the winnings into like pumping up this crypto the game meme coin, which to me was like not necessarily pot splitting, but it kind of is, right? In that if you like held the coin, you would benefit.
Yeah.
But also simultaneously, it's like I'm exchanging like an asset for an asset.
Yeah.
So to me, like that was the more fair approach versus like let me like send everyone like 0.2 ETH or whatever who ended up voting for me.
I think I think I would have been on the side of like if everybody was like, let's split it, I think I would have been like, okay, let's split it. Like I wouldn't want to be the one person. Like if Christian was like the only person that didn't want to split it, I think that would have been rough for him. But I think because he had enough of a backing, like people like you that, you know, were also anti-splitters.
Right,
that
but
it
this is the
worked.
thing, is that there was this public split, pro splitters, anti splitters, and then there was a smaller group chat and these group chats were all leaking each other's member lists.
Sure, yeah, of course.
But there was another group chat that had 0 leaks the whole time. So I'm not even sure how many people even know it existed.
I didn't know.
And that was the, like, in the end.
Tina, I feel like you played the most low key, like fly under the radar game.
Yeah, I
ever.
think I
Like
did.
you just like you're like, I don't know what's happening. I just coasted along. Here I am in the finals.
I literally was like, I don't know how I made it, but I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, no, I love it.
I'm glad I could show everyone who, you know, doesn't have a distinct advantage that they could also somehow make it.
I absolutely love it. I love it. Any final thoughts on the game? Like advice for people that play season 2?
One piece of advice, in my opinion, is like, okay, like it's not the 0.1 ETH that like you should consider as the, you know, investment of the game. It's like probably 40 hours of your time for that week.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
if you like can't be online, don't do it.
It's like Dylan said, like it's not for everyone, right? And I honestly like wonder, I kind of waver on that border of like, I don't know if this is like for me. Like I love being part of it and I like the game aspects of it, but just like the constantly online thing is tough.
I think if it comes out in the next month, I'm like, I don't even know. Like,
Yeah.
that
I don't
another
know.
40 hours.
It's still ski season.
It
It's still
is.
touching grass. Richie, what about you? Any advice for season 2 players, or how would you any advice for yourself maybe even?
I looked at it as going to a conference. It was like, I'm going to go play a game. I'm going to meet people in the space. It has an entry fee, just like a conference. And it's going to be super fun. And you have a chance to meet and play and do this thing and participate in on-chain culture in a way that's pretty unique. And so that was sort of the way I went into it, was I was like, I want to be a participant in what's happening in this space. I want to participate in this culture. I want to meet more people in this culture. So I'm just going to play the game and do that. I didn't expect to spend as much time as I did, But when I realized it was like day 3, I kind of realized what was actually happening. And I was like, oh, this is going to take all of my time.
Yeah.
And I figured I wouldn't make it to the end. So I was like, oh, I'll just put like a ton of my time into this for the next couple of days. I'll probably be out anyway. And then I'll just go back to work. And so I told my team, I'm like, think about it as like I'm going to a conference. I'm going to meet a bunch of people. It's going to be really weird. It's going to be questionably productive. And, you know, it'll be what it is. And then ended up like being, 10 days. And so it would be like me waking up early, like super early, doing a bunch of work. And then at noon, so I like put a whole work day in before noon.
Yep.
And then at noon, like play the game until, the voting happened, and then go to bed and like wake up the next day. And,
Yeah,
like,
no,
do the same
I
thing.
can't lie. I was like low key relieved when I was voted. I was upset to be voted out, but I was also like slightly relieved that I could get my life back after that. And then I just couldn't be. I know Dylan said a lot of people still like monitored closely the game.
Yeah.
I honestly like didn't pay attention at all once I was voted out. I was just like, I need to have my life back.
I mean, most of the game was in Telegram.
Yeah.
So you're just
Yeah.
sitting there like on Telegram for hours.
Yeah,
if
and
you're
I
really
imagine
doing-
I imagine the longer you last in the game, the more Telegram chats you
For
have
sure.
to.
Right.
And you have like 10 different branches.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like Telegram warfare.
Totally.
So like you have like this group that like finds the invite link for another group, and like 30 minutes before voting goes in and starts throwing memes in there so that they can't actually coordinate with each other.
Yeah.
And you don't know who was there before that happened. So it's like actual like looking into like how Telegram works and like what we can do to exploit other groups. And yeah, it was pretty insane.
Well, I'm really excited for season 2. I hope that we all 3 of us play and maybe we can form a little alliance here or there. I mean, we kind of already were, Richie. I feel like we're Gucci.
Yeah.
And Tina now.
Yes, I trust
Join
you
our tribe.
completely.
I might go on.
I think I would go on
Yeah.
too.
Really?
As a finalist, I feel like you have
Yeah.
to go on.
It's better, I think, to be an on. And it's
But don't
better
you
to
think?
like.
But don't you think that like having a face to your person got you to the finals or no?
No.
Wow.
The
okay.
guy who won didn't have a face.
True.
Right.
Okay.
I think
interesting.
I think I just had immunity on the last night.
Yeah.
That's what, or else I would have been out.
Start
That's how I feel.
crafting a narrative from the beginning.
Yeah.
We'll start writing poetry now.
And you got to start spinning up
Yes.
your Anon Twitter so that you're like,
I already have one.
great.
I gotta fluff it up. Yeah, I'm gonna start working on that now. Play the long game.
Yeah,
Cool.
for
Well,
sure.
tell people where they can find you if they want to follow you and check you guys out for season 2. And then I forget. Yeah, go ahead and plug yourself.
Yeah, I'm at Richie Bonilla on Twitter and at Richie on Warpcast or Farcaster.
Cool. I'm at Howdai, HOWDAI at Farcaster, and then at Howdai27 on Twitter. And then the one last thing I wanted to say was like Richie, what you said about all the like networking and all the amazing people you meet. I think we underemphasize like this was probably the best like crypto networking ever.
100%.
I mean, there's a
That
lot of
was,
people here that I see and they're like, oh, wait, you're White Tribe. And I'm like, oh my God.
White
You know,
Tribe,
like,
I know.
That's happened like this week. That's happened a number of times.
I believe
it's
it.
really
Yeah,
fun.
I believe it. That was definitely one of my most positive takeaways as well. And then I forgot to get Dylan and Tyler to plug themselves as well. But you can find Dylan on Twitter at Dylan Abruscato. Tyler is at TJ Cages. Thank you so much for joining me on this panel. Thank you, everybody.
for having
Thank you.
Tuning in. We'll pivot to the next one. Thanks, guys. Cool. If you are just joining, which I think our sponsors, LayerZero and Clusters, have just showed up. Woo! If you're just joining, the way we have this set up, bathrooms are back there in the kitchen. If you need the bathroom, please use it now before we start our next recording. We still have food and drinks over there. And I think we have more merch. We have Rehash beanies. Make sure you grab one before you go. And then we have more merch from LayerZero and Clusters. two people can sit on the couch. So up to you.
Maybe.
We could have the.
Yeah, maybe like Irene, Diana, me, Munam.
Yeah, there you go. Delegate people together.
Okay.
I'm his emotional support animal.
Okay, cool. Hey guys, we're gonna get started in a second. If you need the bathroom, go ahead and use it now. Otherwise, feel free to take a seat, grab some food, sit down, and we'll get started in a second. Where did that mic go?
There's one right here.
Oh, yeah, I think we can put it back. Should we put it back on the stand now that?
set up a mic stand over there.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I was gonna ask you whatever you felt more comfortable with. Probably stand is.
Was it good? Yeah.
But I didn't know what I.
Sorry.
No, it was good. It was good. But when I was halfway through it, I was like, oh, this is really good. And I started looking at it.
Oh.
I was like, oh shit.
Do you guys need a drink or anything for start?
You should probably get a cold.
Yeah.
We've already got water. You want a long? We have long drink as well, which is a gluten-free. Do you need a drink?
I have water. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Hello.
He just, I know. He goes everywhere with me. Just chills.
Toby.
What's his name?
Toby.
Toby.
Yeah.
Good boy.
All right, guys. If you were not here earlier, I'm gonna do a quick little spiel again. We have food over here. Feel free to help yourselves to that. We have long drink in the cooler. They very graciously brought us a bunch of free drinks. It's a Finnish, gluten-free, some sort of alcoholic beverage. I'm honestly not quite sure, but you can try it and let me know how it is. And then we have a confessional booth in the basement. You can feel free to go down there at any time and record a crypto confession or a confession about anything, spill the tea on video, and we're gonna mint everything on chain. Make sure if you record a confession that you also leave your wallet address on the Google spreadsheet that was circulated with the Luma invite, so we can build you into the split when we release it on chain. There's also a cube hat that you can, a box hat that you can wear if you would like to remain anonymous, so people don't know who you are, so that's also an option. But feel free to go downstairs at any point and record that. Also have Rehash beanies here, and I believe you guys brought some merch.
Yeah,
in that box right there.
That's the clusters merch. My team is going to come at the end.
We put some hats out.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so grab that too before you guys go. Yeah. Any questions? Cool. Well, let's see. Are we all set up? Audio? Oh, yeah.
Is this close enough on this side? Yeah. Cool.
Are we looking?
Okay. Everyone sound is good? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kaylee. Thanks, Eric. Cool. You guys ready to roll?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. This is our third recording of the day. We're live from Denver. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for people who've been here for all the recordings. You just staying recording after recording. Really appreciate you being here. This third recording is going to be on the multi-chain world. And so we're going to talk all about what that multi-chain world might look like. Our first podcast today, for those of you who are here, was an L2 Wars panel. So we had a little debate between Polygon, Arbitrum, and Optimism. And now we're kind of coming together and envisioning what that multi-chain world might actually look like in the future. So before we get into it, first of all, I would just like to say a quick shout out and thank you to our sponsors, LayerZero and Clusters, who have joined me today on this panel. LayerZero is an immutable, permissionless, and censorship-resistant protocol that connects blockchains. You can check them out at layerzero.network. And Clusters is one name for all of your wallets and all of your chains. You can check them out and get your name at clusters.xyz. So today on this podcast, we have with us Irene Wu, who is head of strategy at LayerZero, and then we have Fubar, 0x Fubar on Twitter, who's the founder of Delegate/Clusters, and Munam, who is also at Delegate/Clusters. Thank you guys for sponsoring this event. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you all about the multi-chain world. So I guess to start out, I want to just start by talking about like why do we need all of these different blockchains, right? Like we have several L1s, you know, Ethereum, Solana has really risen to the surface this cycle, and then we have so many L2s as well. Why do we need all of these blockchains? Why can't we just all operate on one chain?
I can start there by saying that if you've ever held assets or tried to use an application on one chain and then wanted to do something else on a different chain, you'll know that it's incredibly painful right now and cumbersome to do so. If our collective thesis around blockchains proves to be true, which is that there will be real usage in the world, penetration in say like fintech and consumer applications is more than say 20%, then the user experience has to be greatly improved. And liquidity is an important piece of that. We're still in the earliest days, so like asset values is a big part of it. Moving, say, a stable coin from one L2 to another L2 is still not a very seamless process. You have to go all the way back, wait the 7-day bridge back period, and then go through another native bridge, oftentimes expensing more gas, being exposed to more slippage. I think the summary is to build the most creative and novel applications that show uniquely what you can do with blockchain technology. You need to be able to leverage the best of multiple chains, but do so in a way that abstracts away the complexity.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think competition makes the world better. Different people value different things. And so you've got Bitcoin, who thinks that humans are fallible and we need to pick something and stick to it. And that, I think, has proved incredibly correct in the sight of lots of interesting decisions. ETH doing institutional grade, but still some modifications trying to clean up what does accelerationism look like on the MEV supply chain and being able to scale to millions of users while still having small nodes. You've got the Solana approach of crank it up to the max. And then newer approaches that experimenting with safer VMs, more interesting environments. So I think it's a net benefit for everyone. If you just had one blockchain, often stagnates, gets captured. So
yeah, would you say in a way that it's necessary too, with so many different projects being built on chain, that you inevitably have to have different blockchains that optimize for different things? Like Solana, crank it up to the max, you know, maybe if that's something that you optimize for and that you need in whatever it is you're building, that's somewhere that you might build. Whereas, you know, somebody like an individual creator, for example, who just wants to build their own blockchain, their own roll-up, might not care about, you know, that scalability and stuff like that. They might care about other features that they're able to have. Would you say that that's the case for different blockchains, is that they serve a different purpose and they serve almost a different customer base?
Yeah, exactly. And there's also path dependence in this process of you often need to get out the simple approach and get people comfy with that and using that and tease out what they really care about before moving on to the complex approach. You can't launch the fully formed final version. What does it mean to have an MEV supply chain if people are just sending ETH around, for example? UniV1 was good for its time. UniV2 was right for its time. UniV3 is right for its time. So there's a lot of this experimentation, and I think learning. You can't do step 10 until you do step 9.
I would go even further to say that these trade-offs are inherent to designing blockchains. Like, it is not possible to optimize for every single thing. And if you're building an app chain that's customized for, say, what your game needs, you likely will lack liquidity that is like most robust on, say, Ethereum. I was just giving this talk at the Stanford Bass event, and one thing I said at the end that was sort of like a wish list call for builders is to view chains more like programming languages. When you set out to build something normally as, let's say, like a Web2 developer, you don't think, I really love this programming language, what can I make with C++? You think, instead, here's this problem, I want to solve for it. Here's the user experience, the dream state flow, what do I have at my disposal? I have these front-end programming languages, back-end, everything. Right now we look at chains like a real estate tax or like a tax to your landlord. It's commercial real estate. You choose where you launch your home base, and there's a lot of tribalistic affinity involved in that. With something like LayerZero or immutable piping underneath it all, you can begin to leverage these inherently like trade-off articulated chains as different tools to create something composed and ideal for your user.
I also want to touch on one thing you said, Diana, which I hope doesn't go unnoticed, which was like, if you're a small creator wanting to create your own blockchain, I think we're at that point now technologically where, you know, it is quite literally one click to create a chain through some of these platforms. And that is going to lead to a Cambrian explosion of chains. That's what creates fragmentation, which is kind of why the reason, you know, why we exist, and I would argue kind of why LayerZero also exists as well, is that we're trying to solve these problems. You know, when Bitcoin existed, the world was really simple. It's like, this is the one blockchain. And, you know, it had this mythos of like Satoshi and these OG cypherpunks. Then, you know, Ethereum came around as a predecessor, and you had like Vitalik, the super nerd, and the Ethereum Foundation core devs. Nowadays, you don't need to be like a mythological dev. You can click a button on a website and create a chain. And there needs to be tools to like unify that experience and make it accessible for every single person.
Yeah, so lots of benefits to having all of these different blockchains. They each serve their own purpose, and it's great because it gives everyone, you know, a chain to use for their specific purposes. But on the sort of flip side of that is when we have all of these chains, it makes it sometimes incredibly cumbersome for the end user to interact with dApps and to interact with, you know, the different things that they want to do, whether it's games or minting NFTs or whatever it is. From a technical perspective, like on the back end, why is cross-chain interoperability so difficult? And I'm just assuming it's difficult because it hasn't really been done yet, but I'm non-technical, so I don't actually know what's happening that's making it so difficult.
When you ask about difficulty, do you mean why is it so difficult to build a protocol that can service this, or for application developers to create cross-chain experiences?
I guess both, yeah. So I mean, we're seeing products now like Decent's the Box that enables cross-chain minting and things like that, which is great, but that's super recent. And up until maybe like 3 months ago or so, like there was just nothing out there where, you know, like if I was trying to mint an NFT on a new chain for the first time, I would have to go through the process of bridging ETH over in order to mint it. There was no other way to do it, no other shortcut to do it.
So a few key things come to mind. I think the first one is very overlooked, and it's the concept of unified semantics. Prior to LayerZero, there were attempts to create messaging protocols or messaging services, but integrating that into your contracts, say on Ethereum versus integrating it on Solana, was wildly different. That developer experience was different, and then also that relayed into the end user experience being different. For example, some bridges and messaging protocols that exist today on Solana still require your users to go and fetch the transaction themselves, and they'll need to have the gas token in their wallet. So just so you can see this in perspective, if you're trying to bridge something or even just perform some transaction on chain that is occurring on both Ethereum and Solana, you would need ETH and Sol in your wallet. That's a very prohibitive requirement for that user experience. I think the second thing is gas abstraction. LayerZero and V1 implemented this, but LayerZero is actually fairly new. We've been around for 2 years now, and the problem of interoperability is an age-old one. It's been a problem for like 50 years if you look at the interoperability issues of the internet. For LayerZero, what gas abstraction means is doing the exchange and quoting up front for the gas tokens you need so that the end user only pays with one token in one click. So those are the developer and user experience challenges. Then there's the security challenges. And the first approach to interoperability were wrapped asset bridges back in 2020. These are smart contracts that lock value within them, custodied by a third party. It could be a multi-sig of a handful of people in China or somewhere, or it could be a team that's venture funded, but fingers crossed that they don't push an upgrade to their contracts that introduces some vulnerability. You get minted a synthetic asset. You're constantly carrying with you the risk, the perpetual risk that other contract you don't control could be upgraded. I think people were terrified. After 2022, more than $1 billion were lost through bridge hacks. And so when DAOs are deliberating whether to expand or not, it's seen as this inevitability of the bridge will get hacked. It's just a matter of time. However, we at LayerZero believe that there is a better way. There's a way you can build a messaging protocol that is evergreen. It's truly immutable, and it can evolve with research and time. That's what true protocol design should look like. And I guess to summarize then, it's on one hand that we haven't had strong and deliberate enough architecture and designs for building cross-chain live and on mainnet for a long period of time. we're really excited that LayerZero v2 is now live on mainnet. And then on the other side, it's a new concept for developers to have the tooling to build cross-chain and do so in a way that they can deliver peace of mind to their users and for themselves.
Yeah, so with regards to all of these problems that you highlighted, security and stuff like this, are there solutions to these problems that people are building, or is there always going to be this inherent risk with security and things like that that people will just have to kind of deal with if they want to operate in this multi-chain world in the future?
I can answer it, but I'm actually really curious to hear what Fubar has to say, because we actually first met because I read their threads on security. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that there's always going to be some sort of trade-off at the limit of what does the security and UX frontier look like. But I'd say that status quo, we're probably 10x away from that. There are so many clear unlocks we can get when it comes to modular security, better validators, cleaner encoding, whatnot, that there's so much room for improvement that I'd say in theory, yes. In practice, no. We can just make things better. We can do strict improvements. The status quo is a multi-sig. Multi-sig signers disappear. People finally stop trusting those multi-sigs and relying on more distributed validator sets and nodes. So I feel like a common problem people have in crypto is they point to some theoretical trade-off, a blockchain trilemma, maybe. And they say, look, it's impossible to hit infinity on all these points, therefore we can't improve. But no, actually you can get 10x, 100x, 1000x orders of magnitude improvements without sacrificing before you actually run into those core conflicts.
What does it take for us to get there? Is it more money, better devs? Like, what is it?
The constraint really does seem to be the right people and them being focused on the right thing. It's fascinating how little correlation there is between money poured into a project and the innovation and ethos that comes out of it. You look at a lot of the ICOs from 2017, 2018, and the innovation's not coming from there. It's often something that pops up out of the blue. So that's one of the things I love about crypto is it's very high leverage on an individual level. I don't mean leverage in the financial sense. I mean leverage in the impact sense. One person or a small team of 3 to 5 people can come in and ship a protocol in under a year that makes a real difference and does push the status quo forward. So that's something that I love. It's not present in other tech. It's not quite present in the SaaS world. It's very hard to find in other industries. So yeah, the field is right.
I do, like, to challenge a little bit, I do think incentives and distribution opportunities matter a lot for pushing or accelerating the path to more advanced validation methodologies. And a great example of this is with LayerZero, the verification layer is always permissionless. So you can run your own what we call DVN or decentralized verifier network. And it's also a business opportunity, so you can charge fees there. What can be a DVN? It could be a ZK Lite client or a ZK Oracle. It could be a consortium of your top delegates all signing. It can really be anything that can validate a message. And because now LayerZero is essentially a distribution channel for this, teams that otherwise might have considered building a ZK bridge but realized our bread and butter is actually just the validation there. It's not creating these really complex gateway contracts, can use LayerZero as the way to reach these developers, and with some funding has a clear path to a real business. And talented engineers will then want to go work for a project that has users.
Yeah, I think both are true, right? Like, we've definitely seen projects that are way overfunded. Like, they have no even proof of concept or anything. And during the bull run, they get millions of dollars of funding for really nothing. But at the same time, fair compensation is always,
or an opportunity to have users. Yeah.
There's a flip side to that too. I think focusing on the users for a second, and that I think user expectation is something that can definitely be trained and developed once they get used to certain UI UX patterns. I think we all kind of took it for granted during certain versions of the crypto ecosystem that we've had before that you are going to lose money. I know that when I was playing some of these very high yield like APY ohm forks that I probably was going to get rugged within 30 minutes. And that happened multiple times. That was, I guess, part of the charm. But as products mature, and I think as they start to scale and get distribution, I think users start to demand certain things. That's the secret sauce at Delegate. We're a very small team. We don't have the ability to actually reach out to hundreds of projects at a time. That's just not possible. But because users get one delightful, joyful experience in one place, they go out and ask projects to implement it in other places. And that's been part of our secret to our success, is that our users have evangelized us to other people. That's something that can be possible. You know, you can use a token for that. That's the easiest way of doing it. There have been a lot of these sort of like anti-MEV protocols that say, you know, keep everyone more safe and more efficient on chain, or at least financially safe and efficient on chain, and opt into our rewards network. We don't do that. We just focus on, pure security. But there are many pathways to also have your customers be your biggest advocates. And that, I think, is one of the things that's changing. I think a lot of developers are now starting to realize that you can't just like write a smart contract in the wild. There are a lot of them out there. You kind of need people to carry the torch for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we envision a multi-chain world, once we solve all of these problems that we discussed, what does that look like to you guys? And I'd love to hear like as many examples and real life use cases, like from the end user perspective as well as like a dev tooling perspective of like what that looks like for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I can start. I think the main idea that people haven't quite caught on to yet, but they will over the next year or two, is chain abstraction. The idea that you've got your account, your assets, and some are on Bitcoin, some are on Ethereum, some are on Solana, some are elsewhere. People have this experience within a native centralized exchange, a Coinbase or a Binance. In a way, centralized exchanges are proto-bridges. They bridge from the fiat world into the on-chain world, but they also bridge across chains. We don't think of them as playing that role typically because they don't have protocol aspects to them. They're not composable. They're often, they are centralized, hence the name. But this experience hasn't quite percolated over to the crypto native world yet of self-custody. If you're using Ethereum, you might be on MetaMask, you might be on Rabby. If you're on Solana, you might be using Phantom Wallet, Backpack Wallet. If you're on Bitcoin, you go Google what a Bitcoin wallet is and whether it supports ordinals. and people give up on this because it's too hard. I know there's still, I'm a week behind on claiming my airdrops because I haven't gone through and done the necessary work for which extension is necessary where. And that experience, that fragmented experience, will be replaced with what I call universal apps. An app where it's the same experience no matter what underlying execution environment you're on. If you think about it, you open up a Chrome browser. You don't know whether Chrome is written in JavaScript or C++ or Python or Rust. Maybe it's a combo of them. All you know is that your experience on Chrome on desktop is similar to your experience on Chrome on the iPad, on mobile, and so on. And so what's the equivalent of that for crypto? I think we're going to see apps come a lot more to the forefront. There's been a very heavy infra focus, as is proper and necessary. You can't build apps without good infra. But universal apps are going to be what onboard the next billion users.
Yeah, so essentially the user experience is, for example, I have an ETH wallet. I only say I only have ETH in my wallet. I don't have Solana. I don't have Bitcoin, anything. I can still interact with Solana apps without getting a Phantom wallet or getting any Solana or anything like that. And that whole user experience is super seamless as long as I have a wallet of some kind on some chain.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of have this at the wallet level. You look at new Phantom releases, for example, have EVM support. But this hasn't happened at the app level yet. If you wanna use a DEX, it's Jupiter on Solana, it's Uniswap on Ethereum. If you want to use a naming service to put clusters at the forefront, is it Ethereum name service or Solana name service or Avalanche name service or a Binance name service? It's a little ridiculous. So these apps, I think, especially ones that help users configure core bits of their profile, core bits of their identity, really stand to take off. I mean, the future world I envision is where ENS and SNS and BNS and ANS are all rolled up into your unified user profile, your universal cluster.
I would say wallet multi-chain design right now is still very much like within the box, not outside of it. Meaning, what is avant-garde is to have a drop down and you can choose which chain you're on, or like, look, now you can see all your assets in one place. I'd love for someone who's never used wallets before to come in and try and design something for, or with the requirements of having to support assets which have particular traits or originate in different places. It may look wildly different. I also think if we succeed in a multi-chain world, how many tabs does a person have to open to achieve what they wanted to by using your app? And like you said, would you have to go get Sol? Well, that's another tab you open. That's another opportunity for user churn. We don't talk very much about churn, and yet we do it every single day. I remember when I was in Istanbul, I was trying to buy something, and very cool that they accept USDC, but it was on Solana. And I live and breathe interoperability. This is my life. It took me 6 hours, and I ended up calling a friend and did a janky OTC swap. And then there were like tears in my eyes also. So yes, we're in a multi-chain present, but it's like a pretty janky one right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, but I really enjoy collecting different types of media. And anytime I come across a new piece of media on a chain that I haven't operated on before, I probably will pass on like at least 3 to 5 of these NFTs that I could be collecting and minting until I finally am like, okay, fine. It looks like there's some traction on this chain. Let me finally go bridge some ETH over here so I can actually like take actions on it. And I'm probably in like the top like 0.1% of people who care about collecting media NFTs. And there's already so much friction for somebody like me. Same thing with you. Like if it takes you 6 hours to figure something like that out, then like there's just no way that we can expect a norm, like, you know, anyone that's like not deep in crypto.
And oftentimes getting onto all of these new places is like a completely different experience, just because like the bridge might be designed slightly different, or there might be like different sets of approvals that you haven't gone through before. I know, like, for the sake of my personal research, sometimes when I've heard of new chains, I've just pinged friends in group chat like, hey guys, have you heard of this chain? And then I'll like wait and see what they complain about before I go in and try to figure it out myself. You know, it's a great way of doing that. There's also another aspect of this stuff, like we've been talking about it from the individual user perspective. I think universal applications that can exist independently can also help companies and like protocol providers also reach other communities and chains, depending obviously on what type of product it is. One of the things with clusters that we've been chatting with are some like proof of humanity protocols, and they have like EVM-based zero-knowledge proof hashes for like personhood. They would love to service like everybody who uses Bitcoin or everybody who uses Solana, but you know, like rebuilding your entire company like in Rust for Solana is actually a lot of work. It just doesn't make sense for a lot of people to do that. You know, the Bitcoin VM isn't really real. You can't really do that over there. But when you have like universal apps that give you like opinionated interfaces, but also generalizable ones at the same time, you're able to do clever things. Some of these protocols are like considering the possibility of like attesting for the personhood of people that have Solana addresses or Bitcoin addresses if within their cluster they have a like EVM address that contains like this hash. That's like one particular example, obviously unique to how we're designed, but I think it underscores a new type of thinking. Like, how can I think a little bit outside of the box? And instead of viewing what I have built as limited just my ecosystem, how can I take advantage of other tools and services and like other people's distribution to also, you know, connect with users on multiple chains and multiple wallets?
Do you think on the flip side that there are any disadvantages to a multi-chain world, or from the perspective of individual chains or individual builders, is there any reason why they might want to they might not want to engage in interoperability?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that there are a couple. The dominant one, interestingly enough, is not even technical. It's social. all my friends are here, and they will get mad at me and make fun of me online if I go somewhere else. So there's very strong tribal dynamics where people try to have this zero-sum mentality of there are only so many users in the world. They're either with us or not with us, which doesn't make sense when you have sub 1% penetration, but that feeling is there. Beyond that, there are some interesting technical problems to solve as well. A naive multi-chain approach can reduce to the security of the weakest chain. So your universal app is on 10 chains, and just one of them goes down. And if you've configured things poorly, that one going down can cause cascading failures. Now, I think that's more of a failure to think ahead. That's not inherent to universal apps. You just need to think carefully about what are your trust assumptions and what are you relying on there. But it does add a bit of complexity, and you have to build a generalized architecture from the start. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like when you're putting together a house. Oftentimes you need to know how many stories is there going to be. You have to, if there's going to be a basement, you can't build the second floor and then decide after the fact you want a basement. Mm-hmm. Or if you do, it's very, very clunky to go in and rebuild that. So a lot of protocols, I think, sprung up in the single chain maxi world. All there was with Ethereum and all there was MetaMask. And what they needed to do was sprint to the finish line for this specific snapshot of what does crypto look like. And it's been a little harder to adapt. With Delegate, we focused on building for the multi-chain, multi-wallet world from the very start. And that's been a huge advantage. I think we've gotten our deployment time for protocol onto new chains down to sub 15 minutes. Other protocols take 15 weeks, sometimes 15 months, which seems excessive on that bit. But it really is planning ahead and thinking about what is the world going to look like, not what does it look like today.
The protocols that struggle the most I've seen are the ones that started as single chain, and then their approach to cross-chain was multi-chain, meaning these isolated deployments on multiple chains, often after really laborious governance processes. And then now it's, okay, we have to do a whole V3 or V4 to make it universal or to make it cross-chain. Now we actually want to be able to have users lend on chain A and borrow on 3 others in one click. That's a total rewrite. And every time you have to do total rewrites, there's a lot of code exposure. There's all of the potential vulnerabilities you could introduce. It's really, really scary. I think another downside is we have, lack of education and knowledge across the industry. A lot of the knowledge around security cross-chain is very esoteric, and you have to be really, really deeply in the know or commit multiple months maybe to doing proper research and diligence. And then there's, the difference of bridges versus messaging services versus messaging protocols. A service is not the same thing as a protocol, and I see many projects integrate something that depends on the liveness of the creator company to maintain the integrity of the product. That means if you're using something that enables interoperability or bridging, but they can't raise venture funding, your Slack connect with them is gone. Like, how ridiculous that this whole industry that is built around creating really like cypherpunk type products, things that should be entirely individual and free, once again, settle down to whether there's like funding and real people behind it. So the education there around what you should choose for your cross-chain stack is not where we want it to be.
Yeah, so are you guys saying that for a multi-chain world to exist, that you see a lot of current protocols or current apps are going to have to rebuild from the ground up? Or can we build new tools that we can then use on top of the existing things that we have in order to enable cross-chain functionality?
I think the multi-chain world is here, like it or not. How can apps best adapt to it? I think there are huge improvements for standardized approaches to universal apps. It's a lot of work and it's very hard to reinvent all these things from first principles. But that doesn't have to be the case. I think you can rely on good approaches and mimic those. So for example, if you want to make a new DEX, you don't have to invent XY equals K from scratch. You can be inspired by Uniswap code, so on. If you want to make a new blockchain, a new L2, you don't have to code the entire VM from scratch. You've got well-tested, robust things that you can then improve on from there. So we're not here today. Hopefully we can make a dent in this. But I think that the first truly successful universal apps serve as a template and example for everyone else to copy. And then the work is cut by 90%. So I'm optimistic.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think one of the important things over here is to also challenge, I guess, like the assumptions that a lot of applications have made. You know, I think there will always be tools that you can duct tape together to, you know, sort of get to where you want to go. And that's fine. Sometimes that's the best that you can do short of rebuilding everything from the ground up. And you can't always rebuild from the ground up whenever a new paradigm or sort of new dominant thing comes to market. But I think it is helpful to at least, you know, not drink too much of the Kool-Aid that is being, you know, served everywhere. People always talk about the next 1 billion users. If you look at a lot of apps, the top 10,000 users are 99.99% of all of their volume. That's like a very important thing to remember. A lot of people talk about this sort of like future tech, like account abstraction that we're all waiting for and sort of things like these. You know, what does that do to the millions of users that there are today? You know, a lot of people are still building with the idea that one wallet equals one account. These are the sort of things that I think take a little bit of introspection, regardless of whatever it is that you're building, that can serve to unlock for you like the possibility of being more flexible. So it's slightly imprecise, but I think not being dogmatic in what you're like basing everything on is your best bet at being able to, you know, duct tape yourself with some other tool that comes out and be able to like serve people wherever the crypto world goes.
Yeah. I think the teams that right now, if they're at inflection point of a V2 or V3 and are thinking about building very elegant and immutable primitives and abstracting away the maybe like configurations or parameters that change on a shorter time span are at an advantage. A team that comes to mind that's doing this for lending and borrowing is Morpho. And they're a team out of Paris. Really admire their approach. It's very aligned with LayerZero, which is for that core primitive, make it immutable, and everything else that a particular user or developer is trying to customize, make that be configurable and something you can change at any time above that. And for us, when we built V1 and V2, the idea was you should be able to change the validation methodologies you're using for cross-chain as your protocol grows as well. At the very beginning of your DEX, there might be 100,000 users. That's already very ambitious, and maybe $1 million that you're securing. But 2 years from now, you could be securing $1 billion and have many, many users, and your infrastructure should be, yes, immutable, not changeable under your feet. That's how you can be the victim of contagion risk, but also can change where it needs to change. Now, ZK Lite clients are ultra performant, let's say 2 years from now, and you can customize it very easily using Succinct's SP1, whatever it is. You should do that without having to write new code. And the teams that are thinking that way now, rather than thinking, okay, let's hack together some short-term solution where we can aggregate this bridge and this bridge, because honestly, we don't know how messages are validated, but hopefully more means that we have a lower risk of some hack. That's going to lead to a lot of technical debt. So, you know, speed and I think a more product design, intuitive-driven approach will serve some of these new projects really well.
Timing-wise, I know, you know, Fubar, you said that we're already in a multi-chain world, whether we like it or not. But timing-wise, you know, in order to get to a point where we're actually seeing that from the end user perspective, that like there is this cross-chain interoperability and that this user experience has been greatly improved from what it is now. When do you guys expect that to happen? And do you think that, you know, do you think we're at a stage where like we need that to happen with the next bull run in order to really get crypto like enough mainstream adoption, or at least enough escape velocity within the mainstream in order to make sure that, you know, it survives and we get there sooner than later?
Mm-hmm. I think we sit at a super critical inflection point this year and next, to be honest. There's obviously this wave of, I wouldn't call it institutional adoption, but perhaps institutional buying and stakeholding in these core assets at the same time that we haven't seen as many killer apps as we'd have liked to. There are some extremely promising ones, FriendTech, DripHouse, so on, but we're still sitting at 2 to 3, not 20 to 30. So I think that it's actually this year, 2024, next year, 2025, as we see the explosion of L2s, the explosion of new L1 experimentation, that a lot of people are taking their second or their third look at this, and they're a bit impatient. They're saying crypto's been around for a decade. What have you delivered? Yeah. The internet had done interesting things a decade in. Turned out that's not true either, but their revisionist history makes it say so. So I think it's incredibly clear to me that crypto is going to win, is a superior both financial stack, but also social stack, cultural stack, and so on. But what does that path dependence look like? I'd say these years when all eyes are on the industry are critical. You can't have people getting rugged. It's got to be simple. It's got to solve real problems for real people. So,
do you think there needs to be more innovation during these couple of critical years, or do you think there needs to be just like, let's just make what we have better? Mm-hmm. Like, innovation is not key. Let's just like make the baseline better first before we do like cooler things on top of it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's both, frankly. Oftentimes the improvements to the base user experience come from far out moonshot ideas. Mm-hmm. Trying to think of a good example right now, but making a pen so an astronaut can write in space while they're floating around turns out to have real implications. The internet itself was a DARPA innovation for the military. Turns out it's great for watching Netflix. So I think that these do go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's also a little thing over here in that I think as crypto is starting to open up to more people and we're getting people that aren't just, like cypherpunk devs that are taking a look at this stuff, that's where we'll start to see a lot of different, like diverse thoughts shaping how products and experiences are delivered to people. I think this is now where the most technical amongst us are totally fine with just sitting on Etherscan and interacting with a contract that way. But this is where people who are like really good designers are able to come through and say, how can I make this a delightful and joyful click-through experience? Those sort of like 1 to 2% extra differences that are coming from, voices that aren't sort of like singularly focused on just like new code and sort of a new thing being built that way, I think really improve a lot. I was at some event at ETH Denver yesterday, and there was a girl over there who's like a UI UX designer for a like small software company in the area, and she said like these people always look like they're having fun, and I like how a lot of their work is like art related as well. I'd love to figure out like how this industry thinks about UI UX, and she wasn't even being opportunistic about it. It's not like she was trying to get money or anything. But that's like a perfect example of someone that, got sort of happy because of the vibes that she saw and wanted to offer a fresh perspective. She didn't come in here saying like, how can I create the next like high yield farm or whatever? This is someone who said like, I like designing interfaces and I'd love to find sort of like a cool project and help them make a nice interface. And that is also a really big part of unlocking this.
Yeah, I think the heavily like degen communities that just want to yield farm and do stuff like that like exist for the purpose of community, for people to feel like they can be degen with other people together. But in order to reach the mainstream and the masses, like we need a lot more than that. Like
there's one more thing I'll add over here, which is like look at crypto gaming. I think crypto gaming's in a very interesting place and is actually starting to come roaring back. The sort of first iteration of crypto games were these very like spreadsheet video games. Basically it was like min-maxing how much money can you make by like moving money here or there. But like there are these new sort of crypto game experiences that are popping up that are like starting to blow up, that are similar to things that are popular in the real world. In China there's this game called Heroes of Mavia or something like that, and it hit #1 in the Chinese App Store and it's blown to over $2 billion FTV and all of these nice like crypto performance stats. But ultimately it's kind of like Clash of Clans. It turns out everybody loves Clash of Clans, so it makes sense that a crypto game that doesn't feel like I'm sitting with some like poker player, elite mathematician, just losing my money clicking on random like spreadsheet boxes, makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, I do think that like China in particular, because you brought that up, has done a really good job of super apps. And it almost feels like a shame that they're like not more welcoming to blockchain, because I feel like they could be, like they know a thing or two about developing a universal app, and they could really be at the forefront of that.
Chinese grandmas, they know what's going on.
All right, well, any final thoughts before we wrap up this panel about the multi-chain world and what we can expect?
One thing that was coming to mind is you were asking about when the inflection point is going to be, or how important the next 2 years are versus 10 years. At LayerZero, or at least how I think about my work at LayerZero, I try to think a lot more along the time frame of 10 years or 5 years. I'm a fairly impatient person, but what this forces me to do, and what I talk about a lot with friends who are building protocols, is there's a really strong desire to get short-term validation from your peer set in this industry. And so I think by continuing to think about or align with the tribalistic affinity of particular chains or new chains that are coming out, and immediately looking for the satisfaction of praise on crypto Twitter, you are building your product around principles of the opinions of a small set of people. And a leader who comes to mind who I think has done a great job of both achieving that, but also actually prioritizing a different set of opinions is Luca from Pudgy Penguins. The opinion that mattered to him and his team were the opinions of like 6-year-olds in Ohio. And they've achieved that. They built these really adorable plushies and these like figurines, and at the same time have really won over all of us, everyone at LayerZero as a Pudgy. It was like a holiday bonus a couple of years ago, because we are really excited to wear on our sleeve something that is used and appreciated by people like our cousins or our childhood friends. So at least I always think to myself as like a parting note here, to try and be a little bit more patient and think long term. And for cross-chain in particular, it's something that will require a lot of novelty around how you use primitives like LayerZero. Right now, the product market fit is around omni-chain fungible tokens, or tokens which can seamlessly transfer between different chains. And that is a huge step forward towards chain abstraction. But I want to see games where you can perform an action on chain A and it mutates an asset you have on chain B, and that's your Twitter PFP. I played Neopets growing up. It's like you win something, now your Neopet has a crown over here, and have all of this be really low latency. And I think that's going to take time and less of looking around your peer set.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all have a little bit of revisionist history, as I think one of you guys said earlier, about how fast tech has developed even to this day. And we all want like the immediacy of everything nowadays. So yeah, patience is definitely key. What about you guys? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'd closed up echoing what Irene said. Even if the next couple of years are an inflection point, the core principle that drives every one of our products that I ask myself before even embarking on architecture, development, distribution, so on, is, does this have a shot at being relevant and useful in the year 2030? It's amazing how many short-termist ideas that filters out. It leads to some more esoteric choices because these problems are not quite well understood today. But there's no better feeling than putting something together that really can last, that is immutable, that is composable, that's used today by hundreds of protocols like Delegate already is, and ideally thousands in the future. So couldn't be more excited, and just want to encourage everybody to go check out Delegate and Clusters.
Amazing. Munam?
Crypto, a lot of people come to crypto for lots of different reasons. I think I was drawn to crypto, number one, because it was kind of fun, and a lot of the people that were sort of behind it filled, I'd say, or I guess echoed some of my anarchistic tendencies. And the reason why I bring that up is I think that we're at a critical point now where lots of things have been built out and lots of things have lots of different variations, and now we're starting to see like historical patterns emerge. I think it becomes fun when people stop taking like certain things as dogma and stop thinking like there's only one way of doing something. And that's why I think if you're able to inject a little bit of personality or opinion, even on something like front-end design, you're able to create something great. A lot of crypto apps look exactly the same as each other. just being willing to look a little bit different really stands out. Like the LayerZero team, we always used to laugh about it, that we'd see their front end and it's like very flashy and like techno-like. And I remember when we were in their offices, we said, oh, their designer team must be like a Berlin DJ. It turns out they are from Berlin and all of this stuff. Like that sort of little bit of pizzazz over there is the type of stuff that I think really does start to stand out. For clusters, we gave everybody a little like Twitter video that just had their name pop up on it. And, most people didn't even post it to Twitter, but every single person that we've met said like, oh, it's kind of cool. Like I have my little video saved on my phone and, it's just my name on it. And that little bit of extra joy, I think, is the X factor moving forward. Like, be opinionated. Don't necessarily do what anyone else tells you to do, and try to build for the long term. That's it.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much. Before you go, tell people where they can find you on the interwebs if they want to follow you and learn more.
I am on Twitter or X at IreneWoo27, and Telegram's the same handle.
Amazing. Fubar?
I'm on Twitter at 0xfubar, 0xfoobar, and you can find our website at clusters.xyz.
I am Munam. The Twitter handle and Telegram handle is at MUNAMWASI. Or you could just DM the delegate account. I will be the person responding back to you. And please do so.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining this panel. Thank you guys for joining as well. I feel very bullish about our multi-chain world, the future of the multi-chain world. So thank you so much. And thank you again for sponsoring this podcast event too.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Cool. Okay, thank you guys. That's a wrap on our third podcast episode. We have one more that will be starting shortly. It's going to be with Maggie Love from SheFi.
Woo! Is she here now or no?
She is going to be here soon. So if you're just getting in, feel free to take a break. Use the bathroom if you need to. Right now, it's just in the kitchen over here. Grab some water, grab some food, grab some drink. Go record your confessions in the basement.
I think
You're such a great host.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing
Thank you.
That's fun.
it was very cozy.
It's very cozy, yeah. And like shockingly for me, this is my first time recording podcasts in person versus like on video. And it's like, it feels just so much easier and so much better. I know I was already talking to you guys about this earlier, but I love this. I wish I could do everything.
Toby was having
so
dreams
much
during the
better.
podcast. I was
Oh,
watching
was he?
his paws and ears, like
He was like doing,
Feelings is
like
so
running in his sleep. Oh. Good.
What's
wait.
kind of funny was the original version of this. I think the first title you had thrown out was actually the Chain Wars, which I think was the first podcast that came out.
I really wanted to do a combination. I also wanted to do like an Ethereum versus Solana.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And my perspective on that was because we were just coming out with clusters, and we had said internally as a team, all right, everyone, be on your best behavior online. Like, clusters, like we gotta be nice and positive about everything. So I remember dropping in the group chat, like, how about something very positive, like the multi-chain world or something like that.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's a great idea.
No,
Let's go with it.
I definitely do like this.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys.
For hosting. I love the vibes.
Yeah.
And you're right next to Shake Shack. Perfect
There you
place.
go. Yeah. There's so much nearby. I was just like walking from where I parked my car to here, and I was like, this is a great little area of Denver.
Yeah.
hopefully next week you can join for Sun Valley skiing.
Oh, you went? How was it?
Yeah, I was there last year. It's my favorite
Oh,
time.
nice. Okay, I really wanted to go. I had accidentally double booked another ski trip at Mount Bachelor that weekend, but I was like talking to Lucas, and I'm actually going to Sun Valley like
Right
next
after
week.
this?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I'm
you
going to
probably
Utah
better
and then
snow,
Sun
'cause there
Valley.
was
Oh. Okay.
No, you'll have
That's
better
good to know.
snow.
Yeah, no, but
Okay,
it
so
wasn't
I
good. Was it not good for you guys?
So I see my
Oh, I did see some photos, and I feel like all the photos I saw was like 100% men, and I was like, this doesn't actually look that fun.
If you'll accept me like hot dog pizzaing my way down, I will join.
There were maybe 4 women, and I was never in any of the photos.
Yeah.
Because,
I didn't see you in any of the
Well, I
photos, because I
was-
know Lee was there.
Lee was there. She was in some pics. Lucas's girlfriend Porter.
Yeah.
Caitlin from Bankless.
Oh, yeah.
And then me, but I was. Sun Valley has like an amazing research for like regional history center. So when they took all the photos, I was at the fucking library. Literally. So I wasn't there. But you should come next year.
Yeah, I definitely want to.
Yeah.
I was like intending to this year too until I realized my dates were messed up.
Well, I'll let you go and I guess I'll say hi to Maggie. But we have coffee tomorrow, which I can't wait for.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah. Tomorrow morning we'll get to catch up. For real.
You can like really chill out.
Yeah.
You'll be done with this, right?
Yeah, I'll be done with this. Yep. And tomorrow should be a chill day. I have like a few things, but nothing like that. Like nothing like this, you know, where I have to like present and stuff. So let me go open the door. Hi. This was perfect timing. Yeah. I saw you at the door. And then luckily Steph has been here all day, so I just started DMing Steph. Like for my laptop. What's next door? Oh my god, I was gonna tag you on a photo this morning. I went to when I saw the shoes. And I was gonna be like, I'm here. Yeah, of course. There's stickers too, but I don't know if people care about that. Yeah. How did pictures go?
Well, this was at the very end of lunch, so I was like, I figured there are events at like the corporate lunch.
I just did that so people can't just like blast the link. Because this is like, you can only get this if you meet him in person. Are you leaving with your hats?
I left about a couple hats behind. Anyone want a hat?
Does anyone want a cluster top? They're super cute. Does your logo have a name?
We call it the flute. There are. It's that little guy right there. That's our corporate mascot.
So corporate.
So fluffy. Exactly. You got the vision. Cute little flutes. What? Anybody else need a flute?
Let's go with
So he's in all of our marketing. So see, that's on the right there. That's all of our stuff. Ooh, this is good. And we're gonna have plushy soon. We don't have plushy. You gotta go to the corporate website. I would just use the area right now. It's like $4 or $5. I think so. A lot of side
take a seat. I got you some water there. I don't know if you can sit here or there, wherever you feel comfortable.
Is there like you're like judging people based on whether they sit blue or green? There's a
No, well
commonality.
actually so far we've had like this, you're the first like one-on-one interview we've had all day. So far all the seats have been taken.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
amazing. That's
so
exciting.
no one's really had that option yet.
Let me see. I'm like, do I like the blue chair?
How does it feel? Test it out and see what you feel.
Yeah, maybe we'll see what the green one feels like.
You gotta test out the furniture before you buy it.
Hello. You're so sweet. David's been so right. It is a very dog town. Like my little brother's roommate has a dog. I'm staying
Yeah.
with him, and it's like the best.
Yeah, I love it.
Like I can't sit for hours.
Blue one? Yeah. Yeah. Blue ones seem to fit better. Okay.
This is a great space. Much better than the National Western. So.
Oh God, yeah. I did that last year, and I was like, never again.
Alright, we're just doing a quick little thing.
Okay, no worries.
Sounds good.
No worries.
And thank you, friends, for being here. And you're across from that Shake Shack Arbitrum thing.
You're like the third person to say that.
That's because, everyone sends...
I mean, that was not why I picked this venue.
So everyone sends me events like the day before, and they're like, can you bring women in 24 hours to my events? And I'm like, that's not exactly how it works.
How it works, yeah.
Like, people do have plans here, and they're not just, like, dropping their plans because I tell them to. But...
Even women have plans?
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, they're want to do things here or something like that. Like,
Wow.
It's kind of out of the norm. Usually they're just, like, waiting.
I can't believe it. Yeah, I've never known women with plans.
I've never known it. So I was like, this isn't, can you bring 4 people to my barbecue in 4, like a bunch of people to my barbecue in 4 hours? I'm like,
No.
But if you ask me to DJ, I will try to get it.
That's what we needed today, a DJ.
Yes.
For the breaks.
Yes.
So people could dance. Good to know. Next time. We'll be back next year and you can DJ for us.
How have all the conversations been today?
Good, really good. They've all been a little different too.
How so?
There was one, the first one was like debate style L2 wars between Polygon, Arbitrum, and Optimism. Wow. And then the second one was like about crypto, the game. Did you play?
If I played a game, no one's doing SheFi.
Yeah, you don't have time. I know.
But we're trying to fix that. I'm trying to actually hire a team this year so I can play crypto the game.
Yeah.
Did you play it?
Yeah, I did.
I heard it was super fun.
I didn't last super long, probably because I don't have I can't dedicate my whole life to playing the game.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it seems like it's incredible what he must have built because
Yeah.
there's such a high signal activity going on.
Yeah, Dylan and Tyler, like 2 of the co-founders, were both here, and then we had 2 finalists to get like both perspectives.
I love that.
So that was fun. Oh, and then you'll want to pull your mic in too whenever.
That's something I realized at SheFi Summit. You have to teach people how to talk into the mic.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah, I'm sure.
I was standing in the front row like a mom, and I was like, go like this. They were all like, I'm like, no one can hear you.
People are like scared of it.
I think you can hear yourself, and that's why it's scary because you think it's very loud.
Yeah.
But other people could not hear you.
My mom calls me all the time and is like, I was listening to some like super famous Dwayne The Rock Johnson podcast, and
Oh, could someone grab the door, please? Sorry, Eric. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just. I keep seeing people at the door, and then I just like DM Steph, and I'm like, Steph, can you get the door? Are you going to boys' club tonight?
Yes.
Nice.
I don't think anything else. I think I'm pretty tapped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you say you were leaving Denver?
Saturday.
Okay. Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah. It's finally here.
I know.
What day is it?
I'm like, I've realized in my old age, I really don't
We're
like
good?
traveling on Sundays. It feels
Oh.
like way jarring. And I'm starting a new cohort on Tuesday. So I need to make sure like I'm crossing T's and dotting I's. because SheFi Summit took a lot of my bandwidth.
I don't know how you do it. All good? All right, cool. We're going to go ahead and get started, everybody.
Is there any cookie in my teeth?
No, you're good. No cookie.
You never know.
This is our fourth and final podcast recording of the day, live from ETH Denver. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the ones who've been here since our very first panel of the day. Props to you for sticking around all day. Today, for this panel, we have Maggie Love from SheFi. And I should actually start by saying a thank you to our sponsors, LayerZero and Clusters. LayerZero is an immutable, permissionless, and censorship-resistant protocol that connects blockchains. You can check them out at layerzero.network. And Clusters is one name for all of your wallets and all of your chains. You can check them out and get your name at clusters.xyz. So for our final panel of the day, we're ending the day on just a really wholesome, inspiring note with Maggie Love from SheFi. Maggie, I'm so excited to finally have you on the podcast. You are actually the only person today who was voted onto the podcast for this season. And so I'm glad that we're getting to do this recording live in person instead of over Zoom. It's just really good to chat with you finally.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who voted me in and voted for me after my name was proposed. And thank you to all my friends in the audience. Many of you I've known for many years, and so it's really wonderful to be surrounded by all of you while I share more about SheFi.
Amazing. So I want to start with just like SheFi origins. I've been following the SheFi journey for a while, but I've never actually had a chance to talk to you about it or dive deep into it. So if you don't mind just starting from the beginning and telling us about the origins and then walking us through from then till today.
Yeah, so I joined the crypto space full time in 2017. I joined Consensus, and I'd like to say I've had 9 lives in crypto. So I was working on a science fiction storytelling universe. I co-founded a data center company to do Ethereum mining, and those are both, before SheFi. And then I lived through my first bear market in 2018, pretty dark. And in that silence, as 2019 came alive, I started noticing that the first use cases you could actually use on Ethereum were live, which was decentralized finance. And I was at events like ETH Denver in 2019, and I just noticed everyone talking about DeFi, building DeFi on stage, promoting DeFi, happened to be a man, and they'd be like, oh, we're building permissionless and inclusive finance. And I was like, oh, wait, you look like the people that already benefited from traditional finance. And if you're here in 2019, then you're likely benefiting from crypto already. And it didn't look very inclusive to me. And I just felt this need to make sure that women were not left behind and that we didn't exacerbate the gender financial gap that already exists. And it took me a while to actually get to SheFi from there, but it was just always in the back of my mind, like, how do I make sure that women are using DeFi and, more importantly, have the skills to build DeFi? And I was on a run in the summer, and I was just like meditating on this concept and all these words related to decentralized finance and women and how I could get them involved. And I was like, DeFi, SheFi. And I was like, SheFi, that's a very good name. And I went home. It's never been trademarked. And it really felt like divinely inspired. And so I just decided this was what I was supposed to do and just started building a simple curriculum around the top DeFi protocols, or the only ones at the time in 2019, which was like Uniswap, Compound, MakerDAO, and maybe Aave, just like really starting to think about how would I do this. And the idea was women would come together and I would teach them like what's going on under the hood, not just how to do it, but like what is the liquidity pool? What is an automated market maker? Like how do smart contracts facilitate, disintermediated finance? And then we would, as a group, all put our tokens into Compound or all take our first swap on Uniswap. And then we would talk about it. And I thought bringing those two things together, like the education and the actual doing, was really critical to like gaining that confidence in the DeFi space and gaining that literacy to hopefully allow women to get hired into these companies that were on the forefront. Now, little did I know that DeFi Summer 2020 would happen and my work would go from like 5 protocols, basically infinity that summer, lots of new concepts. And so that's really the origin story. I just saw something missing. I thought about it very intently, and then it came to me, and I don't actually have a finance background, but I was just kind of like, why not me? And that's the origin story.
Amazing. It's almost better that you don't have a finance background because it's like we can do this together, and you're probably better at explaining a lot of DeFi concepts to newbies in the space than somebody who was like a finance major in college or something like that. So how did you go about finding that initial community? Because 2019, like I didn't enter the space until late 2020 after DeFi summer. And even then I felt like there were no women in the space. And there's over the last 3 years that I've been in crypto, it's been like exponentially better. But back in 2019, I can only imagine how few women were in the space. How did you even go about finding those people, especially like coming out of a bear market where sentiments are low, as we all here know, having just come out of another bear market? How did you go about like finding these women, convincing them that there was something here for them, and then getting them to take all these actions?
Yeah, so I was at Consensus at the time, so I posted in the Consensus of Women Slack, like, would you be interested in joining this? And they were like, yes, because, you know, maybe they were lawyers or operators or working on some other project and just didn't have time to dedicate to it. So I was like, okay, great. And they were my first people saying like, yeah, you're good at teaching. So giving me that confidence. But it was actually ETH Denver 2020. We were in the Sport Castle, and there was like the Kyber booth, and there was all these DeFi booths. And I went up to people and I was like, hey, I'm going to build a program and teach women how to use your protocol. Like, do you think that's a good idea? And people were like, yeah, like the community was generally like very positive, and that really gave me the confidence to like push it live. And I actually launched it on April 16th, 2020, like from my friend's 1-bedroom apartment in lockdown, because I saw what was happening in the world, and I knew that, you know, finance was a very sensitive topic for many people, like losing their jobs, but like noticing what the government might do and like how this whole, you know, COVID situation would be handled, you might want to start looking into like alternative finance. And so I published my first post on Medium, and then that year, during lockdown, I ran a program called A Date with SheFi, and it was because no one was going out, and I just told my friends in New York, and they were allowed to invite their friends. So that was my first non-crypto native cohort during COVID, and like people from many companies, finance background, tech background, sisters and cousins, and you know, I taught my first class, Becoming a Blockchain Baddie, and they were like, that was amazing. So I just kept getting that positive reinforcement. And then my third cohort, early 2021, was just from a link on Twitter. Like, you know, people weren't even really following SheFi. I was just like, hey, do you want to sign up for my course? And then it was 30 people. And from there, SheFi's biggest growth vector has been referrals. So people taking the course, people enjoying the course and growing. And then, you know, those first cohorts were just smaller. And I was like nervous. I didn't want to take too many people in. So I'd kind of keep it to like maybe 50 and then 80. And then by the time SheFi really expanded was 2022, when the NFT boom really took off and a lot of people saw a use case they could actually relate to. Yeah. And then be like, well, how do I actually learn? And then like we had to do no marketing. Like it was really peak NFTs, peak women in Web3 stuff. And so like 600 women signed up, started signing up for my cohort. And I had already perfected the course and, you know, how we onboarded people. And, you know, it's a one-to-many, at least the courses. So I didn't need to worry about like how many people signed up. So instead of trying to like keep it small, I was like, well, let's just rip off the Band-Aid and see what happens. And from there, I would say word of mouth is still our biggest growth. So like season 9 had 172 people that referred new members to SheFi.
What season are you guys on now?
10. This is my 10th time teaching. Yes.
Wow. And so each season, how long does it last? What does the curriculum look like at this point? Did you write all the curriculum yourself, by the way?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So, well, lockdown, like, I don't really watch TV. Like, I'm not your girl for culture. I'm on season 3 of Succession. I don't know who succeeded or whatever the word is. Succeeded. Successes. But I just wanted to, like, learn more about DeFi and crypto, and I just had this deep urge to understand it and be a part of it. So I just made content during, like, all of lockdown. And so a lot of my like main core, like blockchains, wallets, stable coins, DEXs, lending, was all like done during lockdown. And then, yeah, as the use cases expanded, my community, right, in 2021 was like, well, how do I play in this NFT game? And then, you know, DAOs happened and like everyone wanted SheFi to become a DAO. So like, how do we learn about DAOs? And it's really been like maybe adding a course or two as the use case universe has expanded. And right now, it's about 3 months, and each week is a new use case with 2 classes, an hour and a half, and that builds in time for Q&A and guest lecture and demos as well. So they can actually leave the class and go do the activity.
Is it still focused on DeFi, or has it expanded to include DAOs and NFTs and other concepts in crypto?
It's everything. So it basically starts with like infrastructure the first 3 weeks. So that's your blockchains, your wallets, your scaling infrastructure. So you can actually bridge your tokens and use these use cases. And then it's DeFi. So that's stable coins, staking, swapping, and lending. And then the last one is consumer, which is the new era. So that's like DAOs and governance, and like really a deep dive on governance. And then it's, Web3 social. And I've even added like a week of AI course because I actually came from IBM Watson. And these tools are also very important for people to know, I think, especially for women who might have been waiting to take that leap to do their own thing. Like AI can be a big supercharger.
Are the courses designed for people who have no exposure to crypto and are starting from day one, or can people who already know something about crypto still benefit?
It's mostly designed for people who are new, but like since I am this nerd, I have like sidecars of like if you want to go deeper. Like if you want to know some of the math, or if you want to really get deep into the transaction flow on an optimistic rollup and how that's different than Ethereum, you can go find that in the appendix. And so there is a bit of, more advanced content in there. I always have a section called Let's Get Technical. It's Let's Get Physical, And I like tell the women, like, you're going to sweat. Like, this is going to be a bit more complex. Like, we're going to talk about really how these things work at a bit more of a technical level. But this is not your only time you have to see it. So, like, go back, watch the recording, review the materials, do the readings. Because I do think in order to contribute to this space, not just be onboarded, you do have to know some of these more advanced things. And the good thing about having a community around it is that if people are really stuck, someone from the community can sign up to, like, meet with them one-on-one to really like go through that more advanced concept.
Yeah. How did you think about funding from day one?
Yes. I self-funded SheFi for the first 2 years. Wow. So I didn't know what it would be. There wasn't a lot of positivity around it when I first launched it in 2020, and that honestly held me back a bit. It's all water under the bridge now. But instead of like going out for grant funding, which I probably should have done, I just want people to learn from my mistakes. I like really was like, well, let me really prove that my course is good and that women want this before I like really go out for funding. And yeah, I just want to be honest in case you're a female founder thinking about these things. And so I really waited until I felt like I have a great product. I have a great community. Like this is worth something. It's not just an idea. And so, yeah, I self-funded it, and then I started bringing people on the team. So then that got hard because like my paycheck is supposed to, I had another job. So that actually allowed me to do this thing where I took my paycheck to pay other people. And so, and I just was like, it's going to come back to me. Like I've always had that mindset. And then I think then in 2022, my first sponsor that was like a really no strings attached one was the company called Web3 Cloud, and that was the data center company I had co-founded back in 2018 with Advanced Micro Devices. So they like their daughters were taking it, like they saw me doing it on the side. They didn't ask when I was doing it, but they were like, let's give you this check so you can like really turn the wheels on, or like really get it going. So that was a really great just confidence booster that this like funding women's education was important. And then from there, like I was teaching all these protocols. So I started just targeting the protocols I was teaching and, talking to them about it is like, you do commercials and you hope a percentage of those commercials actually use your app. I've already brought the women down the funnel and they are using the app. So it's like if you're a marketer, it's like a different way of thinking.
Right.
And then if you sponsor the scholarships, these women are your affiliates. They're not just using your protocol. They literally write you love letters. Like, thank you so much, Polygon, for sponsoring my seat in cohort 7. And so that's sort of how I was thinking about it. Well, I'm teaching, this technology. Like I should go and start hitting up all these people that I've been teaching for free. Right. And really that was how I started thinking about it. Like it's a content sponsorship plus, depending on the tier, a scholarship sponsorship. And what their protocols are really hoping to get is users and people who become repeated users. And basically in SheFi, if I tell you to do something, they all do it. So it's like a pretty, it's a pretty guaranteed user. So that's what I started doing in 2022. And then, you know, I've added a bunch of stuff since then. So there's more opportunities to support me financially and SheFi financially.
I think it's super admirable to want to build out a product, like something, and prove that it's valuable before getting funding. And I think like what we saw, at least in the last bull market, is that a lot of projects without even a proof of concept were getting funded just huge dollars. But do you think that's a mistake that you see a lot of founders, especially female founders, make, is waiting too long before going out and asking for funding because maybe they're, you know, for whatever like lack of confidence or just wanting to prove out something before they ask for it, or whatever other reasons?
Totally. I think what I noticed too is like a lot of women need permission, and like I've now that person that's like, you can do it, you know, like they need someone kind of to be like a force there that's like reminding them it's okay. And I also just think like there was a couple, you know, there was Metacartel, there was like grants in 2020. But like, you know, we have such a rich grant ecosystem now. Like there's so many opportunities that I think overall it's like crypto has made it easier to find non-dilutive funding. And I think that's a really important part of this ecosystem, because people can feel like they can try these ideas, you know, without these like crazy pitch decks or these promises to scale to 1 billion people, or like all these things you really have to say to get VC funding. So I think over time it's like improved. And the other thing too is it's just about a lot of times it's about awareness. So, you know, we have like a group that's focused on making sure people know when grants are happening. And I think that's really helpful too, because there's just so much information out there, and there's always been so much information. And I think also like women have families and hobbies, and it's a different profile than someone who wants to like be in the Discord all day to like maybe make an extra buck on a token. So I think there's like you really have to make sure they know the opportunities are there, because they're just not full-time degens. So I think that's a part of it too. But yeah, I would just be like, go out there, try to get funding, apply for all the grants. Don't let your, and like, I only shared the story in the beginning because I was the one who held myself back still. Like, it doesn't matter what anybody on Twitter thought. Like, I was the one who decided to internalize that and have it stunt me. So it's not anybody else but me. So it's like, don't get in your own way.
Yeah, no, for sure. Speaking of Twitter, how do you deal with all the feedback from Twitter? Like most recently, I mean, the funniest thing most recently was, first of all, congrats on your engagement. You're recently engaged or married? Engaged. Recently engaged, and you posted a photo on Twitter from the engagement, and it got quote tweeted and something to the effect of like, can we just focus on building and not post these things or something like that?
Well, it was airdrop season. It was even more important than building. It's airdrop season. Like, get this, you know, garbage off my timeline. Yeah. We've got important things to do.
Yeah, and it was all over Twitter. And I mean, it's like funny, right?
It's amazing.
Like it's amazing. But I'm sure you've gotten your fair share of trolls and just like mean comments along the way as well. How do you deal with all of that?
Well, now I joke that I have been on crypto Twitter since 2017, so you can't hurt me. But I do think like, yeah, I think at first it just felt so like public, and I think the hard thing about Twitter, and we see this with like the retroactive public goods funding, it's like we're now not sitting with people and asking them like, what are you actually building? Like, what has it actually done? You're reading something and you're just reacting to it. Right. And I think that's really interesting, because what I had dealt with was people who had not sat with me, asked me questions, knew anything about what I was doing, just like read maybe my Medium article or a tweet and just like decided that that was enough to be like, this is a terrible idea. And so I could separate myself from it a bit because they weren't the people who had taken my course, and like that feedback matters, not people from Twitter. So I think you just have to realize that so many people on Twitter are just doing, you know, social media has taught us to take the very top surface level, spend 5 seconds scanning it, and then thinking that you can be an expert on what is going on and providing an opinion. And so I think in a lot of ways it was like a big growth moment as well, because I decided to not let that actually stop me from doing what I was doing. But yeah, now I'm just kind of like, if you sit and you go through my course and you're in my community and you're really struggling or having a bad time, like I want to hear your feedback. Like I want to make my offering better. I want to make the community better. But if you're someone on Twitter and you don't engage with me at all, but you think you read something and therefore you get to be telling me how to do what I do, like I don't care. So, and like the airdrop people, the degens, all of that comes with these bull markets. So you just have to like laugh about it. And yeah, Twitter has helped me build my resilience for sure.
Gives you thick skin for sure.
Yes,
Because it's one thing to say like these people don't matter, they don't know you, what they say like literally doesn't matter. But it's another thing when it actually happens to you in the moment to not let it affect you. You know, like until it's happening to you, you're like, just don't let it affect you. Like they don't even know you. You can think logically about it, but when it does hit you, it like hits you hard.
Yeah, I deleted Twitter when it first happened. I was just like, I don't think anything good is gonna come from me watching this, so I might as well see the replay tomorrow.
I've had to go private like once or twice too for the same reason. But so when it comes to onboarding, what have you seen to be some of the most effective strategies for teaching newcomers to the space and onboarding them to crypto?
Yeah, one of the most effective strategies is really trying to think of like what is crypto made up in language that already exists as a concept in someone's head already, right? So like a lot of analogies or a lot of like descriptions, like stablecoins is an easy example. Like why does the US dollar need to equal $1? You go to Sephora, you only bring $50 cash, you know, you're getting your $50 of product. And 2 hours later, the dollars fell to 50 cents. Like, what do you leave behind? And like, you're like Sephora, leaving things behind. I could never. I kind of talk about layer 2s as like completing a book report for Ethereum. So they do all the transactions. They summarize that for Ethereum. They send it to Ethereum, and Ethereum's the teacher and is like, yeah, that's good. I accept. So just like, it's a game for me to always be thinking about like, how can I make this like an accessible analogy? I think that's really helpful. And like I said, the next piece is doing the activities. Like we all know you send a transaction and you're just like, I really hope I didn't fat finger the address and like my money's gonna go to someone else now. And I think those moments are really important just to keep gaining that confidence, like your money showed up where it was supposed to show up, you completed a swap, you even staked. We did a partnership with Obel to teach women how to do like distributed validator technology staking. So they like downloaded command lines and like,
that's advanced.
Yeah, it is advanced. But like a lot of people were engaged and a lot of people wanted to learn how to do it. And like a subset of them went on to actually like start run nodes together. But it's really those workshops, it's those hands-on experiences, because really, until consumer crypto solved all of our problems, this stuff is still a bit difficult to use. And I think, once again, my goal is not onboarding, it's creating contributors. So it is really about getting, the hands-on experience.
Yeah. How much time do you spend with all the members one-on-one going over things versus in like teaching a class?
Yeah, so I can't really spend time with people one-on-one anymore. Like this next cohort coming up is 500 women.
Wow.
So I already am in the community a lot, as my new community manager had politely said, like maybe take a step back in some ways. But what we have is we have a program called Guiding Lights, kind of a play on like Beacon and, Ethereum language. And it's women who take in the course are women who join SheFi, but we're more advanced. And so they don't need the course. And they're like, I'm willing, if someone is stuck, to spend 30 minutes with them on Zoom. So we have a form that you fill out if you get stuck. And then we ping the Guiding Lights and they go, yep, I can teach someone how to bridge their tokens. I can teach someone how to get their, ledger hooked up or get a transaction from A to B. And so we really try to, now that the community is large, to have that community support. And we have like an activity support channel in our Discord where there's always people just responding like, hey, I'm stuck here. Oh, have you tried to do this? And so really now we're trying to push that to the community, because it's why we built community. Like I could have just built a course and just been done with people after they took it. But like I very intentionally built a community around it.
Yeah, I think that ongoing support is really necessary so people don't just learn it and then not know how to apply it and then don't have that support. Because I think that support is really important too. I know your community consists of people from all over the world. Talk a little bit about that experience, because I can imagine that it makes things more challenging to teach because people are coming from such different backgrounds and perspectives, and you're constantly trying to think about the best way to teach a new concept to somebody, and it can be, you might have to teach the same concept 20 different ways to people from different parts of the world. But I can also imagine that it makes it a more fulfilling experience for all the members, because they're getting to also hear the different perspectives of other people that come from different backgrounds as them and think about DeFi and think about like different concepts in crypto in ways that they wouldn't necessarily have come up with on their own. But how's that experience been?
Yeah, first of all, it's like everything about SheFi is like not what I could have imagined when I did it. So like, you have this idea and you're like, I'm going to see if like 15 women want to learn about DeFi. And like now people from like Cameroon are joining your Zoom calls and you're just like, it's honestly unbelievable. And it's like a little emotional every time a new cohort starts, because the first class we're like, where are you, GMing from? And it's like, I'm GMing from Ghana, I'm GMing from Taipei, I'm GMing from London, I'm GMing from San Francisco, I'm GMing from Mexico City. And it's like, wow. And it's definitely a challenge that like I'm an English first speaker and there's not many ways to like replicate me and teachers yet in multiple languages, like definitely one day. But that's also an area where I'm like, AI is going to be amazing. And even Zoom now, you can like say like the speaker is speaking in English and I speak in, Mandarin or something. And I'm pretty sure it translates the subtitles. But I know it's not perfect. And I'm like always thinking about that. But yeah, I think that a good thing about what we do is we try to provide like we have local Telegram groups and we have chapter leads in those local Telegram groups. So women will get together, if they're like native Spanish speakers in LATAM, and they'll like go off and like make sure they can talk about the concepts in Spanish and help each other learn, or, like in other places. So we are trying to decentralize like the community efforts around people meeting while they're in the cohort and having buddies and all of that. So I think it helps, but it's definitely not perfect. And I'm really grateful that there are women who wanted to volunteer and be like, I'll make sure my my community in my area feels like they are, staying up to speed on everything.
Yeah, have you seen like little regional cohorts form within SheFi of like everybody in Mexico City, gathers together and kind of supports each other in their native language, and everybody in different regions that speak the same language gather together and support each other. So that work kind of doesn't all fall on your shoulders and the community takes it upon themselves to help out other people.
Yes, and it's really interesting to like be in every single region group chat and also just notice the differences in like the community styles in different countries. Like the Turkish women are so active and like always getting together, and like the women in Africa are really big on sharing a lot, and like some places in the US it's just like quieter, like the LA channel is a bit quieter. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like I wonder if it's like almost cultural, the way community exists in all these different countries, like is manifesting on this virtual platform. So I think that's like been an interesting insight. But yeah, either they'll get together where they are, or a lot of companies send like the women to SheFi. So they'll start like study groups within their company, or if they're like friends will take it and be like, me and my friend would go meet at a coffee shop in Portland every Saturday morning and like go through all this stuff. And I do think that's like a big part of it. A lot of people do sign up with like another woman. And so whether it's through like the new bonds they make in the local region or just people from a different relationship, people will get together and like go through the content.
Yeah. One thing that I guess is like, I'm curious about your take on it, is in crypto, we see a lot of like, even at ETH Denver, panels where it's like women in DeFi, women in this, women in that. And it's like, on the one hand, like I'm glad that there is this, that people are conscious of this at least, and like consciously trying to put women on panels and stuff like that. I think it was last year or a couple years ago at ETH Denver, they wanted at least one woman. Like I got asked to be on all these panels because they just needed a female.
Yes.
On the panels. I was like, I don't even know anything about this topic. Like, why am I being asked to speak on this panel? Like, just because I'm a woman. So when are we going to, do you think, shift away from that and just make it like experts in DeFi, like experts in this space, and have women represented on each of these panels instead of having to call out? Like, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think it's great that these things exist, or are you kind of like tired of it and ready for us to move off of it too?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about SheFi is it's never been about being a woman in Web3. It's just women who want to learn about blockchain. And every time we have a speaker come in, it's about them being an expert in sharing. And of course, like when you bring a group of people together, they're going to ask like, how have you found it being a woman in XYZ and like getting a job? And so I'm never going to be like, don't talk about that. But I've never like myself hosted a like women in X event, I just try to be like, these are all women presenting or non-binary, and they are telling you about something they've done that's amazing. And I think I do struggle with it because I'm like, I'm this champion of women in this space. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, I've done a lot of things. Like, I've founded a couple companies. I've built a really large community without a token. Like, I have a product. And so I do get a little tired of it. And I think the intention is, obviously the intention is super well-meaning, but I think it's kind of like a lack of creativity. And I think, you know, while I do feel that way, there are probably women who do really want to be on those panels and just like want to get their name out there. So if it is a platform to get people more exposure who are really looking for that in some way, I think it's great, but it's not for me anymore. I think when I was first like hustling for SheFi a lot, I did think like every speaking opportunity is a good one. But now I'm like, hey, thank you so much for asking me. Here's some of the things I've done, and here's some of my literacies. If this is of interest to you, like, happy to do the panel. If it's more focused on women in Web3, like, I hope, you know, you find someone that like fits this panel. So I do think for big conferences, it probably shouldn't exist anymore because like I think it's more of a lack of creativity. But I think, you know, some people are really just trying to make sure that those spaces exist, and that's the way they want to showcase it. So I'm like, not for me, but like, great, and hope you find people that like are excited about that opportunity.
Yeah, totally. Moving forward, what do you have in store for SheFi? Anything new? I mean, continuing to get bigger and bigger cohorts, obviously, but I know over time your strategy has, like, you guys have been doing a lot more in-person events recently, and so that's been a shift in the strategy. Is that going to continue? Or do you have more like new ideas in the pipeline that you can share?
Well, I'm an Enneagram 7, so if you know about the Enneagram, I'm just an ideas factory. So don't come to me with ideas. I will say yes. But yeah, so SheFi's really evolved from that core cohort experience to like noticing the importance of in-person events and seeing all these manels and being like, wait, it's last year, like, it's 2023. Like, there's plenty of women doing badass shit here. Like, let's rival these conferences. So, you know, women-led conferences that are super engaging and yeah, really fun. So we just did one in Denver. We're going to be doing it in Brussels, in Seoul, in Singapore, in Bangkok, and in Nairobi for ETH Safari.
Wow.
And some of those are like partnered where we have a like contingent of women there that are like, I really want ETH Safari to have a SheFi component because they took the course. So that's exciting. And some of them like I'll be going everywhere. So that's really fun. So we really expanded into the event space. We've also expanded our career efforts. So we have a freelance recruiter we're working with who's going to help women get jobs, give once a month sessions on how to get ready for those jobs, and really be that liaison between SheFi and the companies. And also I've expanded my content into teaching corporates. So I'm teaching a very well-known financial institution. We haven't like officially signed everything, so I'm not going to say that, for the second year in a row, which is really exciting. And a couple companies are looking to license my content now because the content itself isn't like overly women. Like, there's memes and there's, you know, some explainers that might gear towards a feminine audience, but like men know what Sephora is, right? So they're going to use it to onboard all like their new employees. So there's a lot of irons in the fire right now, which is really exciting to just see that expansion and that continued affirmation that this is, you know, something a lot of different types of people need.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see how it expands. I really think the institutional adoption is key. We had on the last panel, someone mentioned that institutional adoption is going to be necessary for crypto to like really reach the mainstream or reach some sort of escape velocity to like infiltrate into normies.
Totally.
So institutions leading the charge, that is top signal, I would say. And it's great that you're part of that and that you're, you know, seeing that and getting into that space too.
Yeah, it's been really awesome. And just seeing those types of more professional institutional women like loving it and like wanting to do DeFi.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really exciting year. And like the last thing is like I'm full-time SheFi now. So for the past, since I started SheFi in 2019, I always had something else going on. But I'm like fully dedicated to it. I'm growing my team. I hired a community manager. I'm looking for a COO. If anybody listening here loves operating, I can do it, but it's not my strong suit. And yeah, I'll be really focusing on like new growth strategies and teaching. So it's going to be a really incredible year. And it feels really good to be like, if I could do SheFi with half of my resources, now I have my full resources, like and a team, it's only going to get better.
That's incredible. I don't think I realized that you were part-time until recently. When did you go full-time?
Last August.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome. I can't wait to see what you do with SheFi. Tell people where they can check out SheFi if any women are listening that want to get that education or just join the community. Honestly, I think the community component is equally as valuable, if not honestly more valuable than the education, because the education now is out there. You know, like we've reached a time where there are resources. There are a lot of resources. You still have to kind of dig and look and like know what's good and what's not, but they're out there. But the community component, I think, is really the invaluable piece that you can't, that is, you know, a lot harder to find if you're just one person like new to the space and you don't know where to start.
Yes. And the community component is like our jobs channel is always popping off. People like, hey, can you help me? Can you look at my resume? Oh, you posted a job. Oh, you work there. And it's just like you're seeing constantly like the community value and like really helping women navigate this space professionally. So the community is a huge component. If you want to find us, www.shefi, SHEFI.org. On Twitter, we're she__fi. On Instagram, we're shefi.crypto. And those are really your main channels. And from there, you'll find like our newsletter and all the other, as in crypto, we're on 1 million platforms, all the other 1 million platforms you can find us on. So definitely start at the website. And if you do have any questions, you can email social at shefi.org, and someone from my team will respond to you. So don't hesitate to reach out.
And then where can people find you personally too?
Yes, I'm mostly addicted to Twitter. So you can find me at Maggie, Maggie, Love, LOVE, one word, Maggie Love, _ on Twitter. And yeah, if you have any questions, you know, feel free to shoot me a DM.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Maggie, for joining us. Thank you to our live studio audience for sticking around until this late. I know we're over time quite a bit, so we'll wrap up here and get everybody on to the parties of the evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
this was wonderful.
Course. Thanks, Maggie. All right. Woo!
Yeah, sorry I was so late.
No, it's totally fine. I planned this out in